Hello and welcome to the Saladcast on Bank Holiday Monday 31st May 2010. I'm your host Dan Train, and joining me this week, this time both in the same room, Rob Kemp.
Please call me Spoon.
Or Spoon, indeed. We welcome Spoon.
Okay, let's call him Spoon from now on. I'm sure that'll work wonderfully.
And Zachary Burgess there.
Yes. Conveniently in the same location.
Well, there was reasoning behind that, and
Yes.
I'll link to this as part of my conversation. Actually, it's an on-topic random comment.
So what is the reason? Because I'm still all the way down here in Southampton broadcasting over the internet to you guys, but you're both sitting in the same room in the Switch.
In
The Switch.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy. Ipswich, Suffolk. Yeah.
Faux show.
There's a reason for this, though, isn't there?
Well, yeah. Normally we wouldn't be going to the crazy effort and seeing the... Well, yeah, you just have to see the ridiculous engineering solution we've come up with here to get this to work. It involves a compression mic, 2 sets of headsets for me and Zach, plugged into 3 different computers.
3?
There's 3 different computers involved in this. There's a pile of folders I use to store the information about my new house, on which the microphone is resting to put it up to a decent height. There's a laptop on my
That's one of the 3
my lap.
computers. On your chest? Are you going to say on your chest?
I was. Yeah.
That would be impressive.
I've got laptop boobs.
I don't know. I sometimes rest my laptop when I'm in bed. Like, it's more comfortable than putting it in your lap, because your lap is where your bits are if you're a bloke. So it's like, put it on your chest and rest it there.
Yeah,
like,
and in theory, having a laptop on your lap doesn't do your fertility any good.
It's not so good.
Because you're not supposed to warm your nad.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable anyway. Like, I don't know what the best position is, but yeah, just rest it on there. If you're watching TV in bed on your laptop, which is really bad for your eyes, I imagine, and for your sleep. Quality of sleep.
So this epic solution was only required because otherwise we'd have no cast this week, thanks to Zach's lack of capacity.
You'd possibly have a cast, but you wouldn't have me because my computer is broken and therefore I can't talk from my normal location. Maybe we could have tried using my dad's Mac or something, but then we'd have to find some TeamSpeak variant.
You can get TeamSpeak for Mac.
Yeah, I thought you could. But then I'd have to be in a less convenient location.
Yeah.
With dog.
So what happened to your computer,
now we've added
man?
dog.
What happened to your PC? That thing's been, like, on 24/7 for, 5 years? How long has that been on?
It was only 2 weeks ago that we commented on how long that epic thing has survived.
Yes. That's true. Because since university, did you have it on 24/7 before university, or was it only when you started in the Ultimate and stuff that you started logging all those things?
I don't really know. I can't even remember when I got it, because I must have got it for university, but I can't remember how much longer I had it before that.
Yeah.
It can't have been very long, like the summer.
But how long ago does that place that? That's sort of 2003, isn't it? So that's about 7 years it's been on.
It can't... The thing is, I was trying to work it out the other night, because it's like... you can tell this is the worst way of calculating it ever. But I was thinking back, it was like, how long ago was that? Well, the only thing I have to compare it to is my Eve character.
That's how you log time in your life.
My Eve character is nearly 7 years old, but I played that on the other old computer, like on 56k modem as well.
That's true. Eve is one of the few games that works really well on a 56k modem, or it used to. It probably doesn't anymore, but at the time, it was pretty good. Like, compared to pretty much anything else, it runs really badly on a 56k, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, back in the day, there was a PC Gamer article on what games that you can actually play on 56k modem, and Eve was the most highly recommended. So, if you're out there listening, can you imagine how long would it take to download this podcast to 56k modem?
Quite a long time.
It would take a week or something, wouldn't it? I don't know.
No, it's 100 megs. And you could probably do... Wait, what's 56k? I remember having, like, on average, about 5 kilobyte a second download, like, back in the 56k days. So you're talking 5K a second. That's what? A meg in maths.
Oh, that's trying to do.
Do some maths. You've got a computer right in front of you. Press the
I know,
calculator
but I want to
button.
flex my head muscles. And not the ones on my face.
That
The
would be your
ones
face muscles.
inside
Yeah.
your face.
Well, that's sort of on my head. But anyway, yeah, I can't think of that and Converse at the same time.
No.
5K? Wasn't it like 46?
You're going to do it with proper megs.
Well, no,
You're going to do it with 1024. That'll make it fun.
Well, the modems were 56 kilobit.
Oh, that's right. So
I'm
divide
sure you
I-
could
I-
get over 5.
No, I only ever
On a
got
good
5
day.
kilobytes out of it, really.
Right.
So what, you're talking 200 seconds per meg. So times that by 100, you got like 20,000 seconds.
Now do some division.
Like
Divide by 60. Divide by 60 again. Oh dear.
Oh, now he's going to start the calculator.
Yeah, fuck it.
Screw it. So your computer is toast.
Yes.
So what happened to it?
Well, it was quite weird because I was sitting there waiting for the goddamn Eve servers to come back up, which I'll talk about shortly.
5.5 hours.
Okay. The answer has been calculated. I can't believe it still took you that long. So I was sitting there waiting for Eve to come back online, and then I heard a mysterious pop, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" Because I thought it was one of the halogen lights in my room had blown, but they were all still on, and I was like, "That's odd." So I wandered around and was like, "Well, I can't see anything." So then I just carried on, and then I went to bed, and it was all fine. And then when I woke up in the morning, nothing was on the screen. Everything was still on, and all the power lights and everything.
So you heard a pop, and the computer kept working,
for several hours, and while playing Eve as well, while it was on the screen, it carried on.
Okay. Have you opened it up and tried to figure out what's wrong with it? Or...
Well, I had to look around in the inside to see if I could see anything obvious. It was like, well, none of this looked. It's like I thought it must be something like a capacitor or something that had blown out, and I was like, I couldn't see anything obvious like scorch marks or anything in there.
If a capacitor blows, don't you normally get that yellow shit everywhere? That carcinogenic fluff?
Not that I noticed. I assume it depends how much it blows.
It could be a very small one. I mean,
Well, yeah, I always remember that we had. Well, okay, yeah, it was a fairly meaty capacitor, but someone with me at school managed to blow it up, and there was this yellow shit everywhere.
Yes, but so I looked inside and I couldn't see anything particularly wrong.
Did you smell anything when you heard the pop then?
No, I couldn't smell anything either, which was doubly weird. I was like, surely something must be burnt out in there.
The only time I've ever had a problem with a motherboard was the moment I plugged it in, a brand new one, and turned it on, it caught fire. Which sounds really dramatic, but there was smoke, and obviously, I just plugged everything into a brand new. This shows just how really it was the cheapest motherboard. It was like 40 quid's worth of motherboard from MSI, and the reason I bought it was because it was the exact same motherboard that I already had in my PC, and the reason that motherboard was in that PC was because it was from a vendor like. Do you remember those old PC vendors like?
Your local PC maker, or like PC Pro, or
something like that. Like there was a shop in Town Ramparts for Time, or Tiny, one of those, So and of course they buy the absolute cheapest shit possible so that they can have the best specs for the lowest price. So it was an awful motherboard with reasonably good processor and stuff, and I bought the exact same thing because I didn't know anything about it, and it was really cheap, and I just plugged everything in, turned it on, and it got fire. So I had to get another one, which was fine. I just got an RMA request, but that just shows you don't skimp on the motherboard, because this will happen.
Which apparently I didn't, since it lasted this long.
No, your computer was quite expensive though, wasn't it, back in the day?
So after I opened it up and looked around on the inside, it was like. It was like, well, that capacitor looks slightly suspicious. It looks kind of different, but not obviously blown out. And it was one next to the graphics card, which made sense, because they swapped out the graphics card and it still doesn't send any graphics data to the cable.
It doesn't what?
It doesn't send any graphics.
Any video to the TV.
Oh, okay. So what? So it's not the graphics card then. It's on the motherboard.
Yeah, it's
but next
got
to
to
the
be.
graphics card.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was the capacitor. It's like it's not loading the capacitor, so it can't boot the graphics card or whatever.
I just found one advantage to me and Zach sitting next to each other. I can sort of gesture at him when I'm not quite when he's sort of like questioning what I'm saying,
like, which we can't.
Yeah, it's not going to be an advantage to anyone listening to us.
Well, it means I don't have to argue and sort of like force it down everyone's throats for ages. It's like, well, you know, blah blah blah. It means I might not talk over everyone so much because I'll just be going. Yeah,
interesting.
Like
I wonder what it'd be like if we were all three in the same room, like a real radio show. That'd be interesting. We should try that sometime.
we might end up playing radio rock paper scissors.
That'd be great.
What's that? Did they do that? Real DJs like sit around in the studio?
I'd imagine they must have tried at some point, but it's just not because it'd be one of those crap things. Like the Chris Moyle show do a lot of things where they sort of have something happening in the studio, and basically it results in here it goes, and then have to tell you what happened. And it's like,
yeah, that's not good radio, is it?
It just doesn't quite work.
Really.
So you're like, you win, you rock.
So anyway, this is going to mean
not you
an
rock,
inability,
you rock,
an inability for
rock,
Zach
paper,
to play
scissors.
games. You rock. That kind of rock. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to play any of your games, man, for a while. What's the plan?
Conveniently, at least for this podcast, I can talk about the stuff that I played before it broke.
Okay,
since
so
we hadn't podcasted for quite a long time.
Let's get on to that, shall we? So what you've been playing in the time before your PC exploded?
Well, the first thing I did pretty much, I won't say immediately after the last podcast, although I'm losing track of time all over the place, because I'm not at my computer, so I can't see a clock every hour of the day.
And you can't see your Eve character, so you don't know
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Don't know when my skills are going to finish. Oh shit.
The only way you can keep time.
But pretty much the first thing I did was I played through the original Prince of Persia again after we talked about it.
What,
I was like,
Sands of Time?
yeah, I should go back in there and play that again. I've still got
Sands of Time.
Yeah.
I saw the film.
Of course, it's not the original Prince of Persia.
Well, no.
The original Prince of Persia is really old, and then they made a crap 3D. Everyone forgets this, but they made a crap 3D remake before they made a good 3D remake. Everyone forgets about this game.
Yeah, no, I don't remember the crap one.
Yeah, it was called Prince of Persia 3D or something, and they made it, and it was bad. And then eventually Sands of Time.
Whenever I try and visualize that, all I end up seeing is Aladdin, because it was basically the same.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. That's what it was. Well, that's what the old
the Aladdin games
2D one, yeah.
So did they try and
Disney's
just remake
Aladdin?
Yeah.
Did they just try and remake the 2D game
With
in
3D graphics.
2.5D sort of style?
I don't think
Or
so. I think it was.
Or was it
full-
just a shit like Gex
It-
3D? You know, a shit
Yeah.
platformer.
It was just not a very good platform.
Or Earthworm Jim 3D.
I don't even know who had the license. It might not have been Ubisoft at the time, actually. But anyway, it doesn't matter. No one. And more importantly, Sands of Time. How did you enjoy it then? What do you think?
Well, it was like, obviously there was some stuff that I hadn't remembered. The combat wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was like,
it's okay, isn't it?
But the trouble is, there's like no variation in like.
That's the problem with it. Yeah.
Because it shows these like you have the little stupid thing where it's like the save points. You walk into this glowing pillar of sand, and then you have like a flash forward where it's like you see how to solve the next puzzle that's coming up, and it's like
Yeah.
your premonitions.
That's
So
quite cool.
That's
You're
quite
telling
cool.
the story, aren't you? It's got a framing device where you're telling the story from
Which is
from the future,
ridiculous.
aren't you?
Of course.
Which has the whole where you fuck up and he goes, no, that's not how it happened, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
which
but
I
then,
always
so
really
it's like you get these little flash forward things, and in one of them specifically, it shows a way of using because normally you knock the enemies, you beat the enemies up until they fall over, and then you stab them with the dagger, and that sucks them up. But
Yeah.
there's, in one of these flash forwards, it shows a move where you can like stab the dagger upwards into their stomach, and they kind of crumple over the dagger, and it sucks them in. And I could never work out how to do that. It's like, how do you do that? That's much cooler.
Okay. No, I've never seen that. That would make it a lot more interesting.
Convenient.
'Cause at least that would give you a bit of variety. Because one of the weirdest things about that is if you don't use the dagger, which of course is the whole point is to use the dagger to stack them up. But if you don't, you can fight forever, can't you?
Yeah,
they
they
just
keep
keep
getting
getting
up
up. Yeah. So it's like I was comparing it with the Batman combat, and similar to that in that you can in Batman you can You can whack
Yeah.
them when they're on the ground, it knocks them
And
out
the
completely.
other thing I didn't really realise didn't remember about the old Prince of Persia combat was it does have sort of the Batman elements of like transferring between enemies.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you push in the direction of different enemies, he does different moves to move towards them.
So
Yeah.
a rather underrated version of Free Flow.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so.
well, I mean, I'm not saying it was great because it was maligned for a good reason because it was the weakest part of the game, definitely, because the rest of it was so good, all the platforming.
Apart from that was the other thing that I didn't remember. It's like obviously this game is like full of ridiculous time travel and shit where it's like obviously we can compensate for all kinds of insane complications because we can just say, oh, you go back in time.
Yeah.
That solves the problem of dying and everything. But towards the end, this stupid bit where the woman you're with, that woman, whatever the fuck her name is, she takes the dagger and you're like, oh fuck, now I have to go and rescue her. Which has two severe retarded problems in the plot. The first one being you still fight enemies, except now they just evaporate when you hit them. It's like, what? This entire game you've been like, you have to stab them with the dagger to suck them up, but now you just hit them with the sword and they just die. It's like, okay, thanks for that stupidity. And the other problem is, since you don't have the dagger any longer, you just die if you fuck up at all. And there's one extremely long jumping sequence, right, to come up to the last boss of the game. And it's like, oh, fuck, screwed up again on the last goddamn jump.
That's like when a game, like the whole raison d'etre for a game gets taken away. Just like in...
yeah.
I mean, this is a bit of a weird analogy, but a bit like in Black and White where you get the creature and then it just gets taken away from you for no reason halfway through the game.
Except that's like on the second level.
Yeah. But like, it's like the whole game saying, here, you can solve problems using this awesome feature of using a creature or rewinding time or whatever. And then it goes, nope. Sorry, taking that away.
Really sucked. I failed that. It's because it was the worst. It's the worst thing as well because naturally it has to give you the worst possible thing to do when you don't have the dagger, which is like you can do wall jumps where you jump between the walls to climb up, but then if the two walls are far enough apart, you climb down by doing wall jumps.
Right,
but
yeah, because you can slide, can't you?
Well, no, you can't slide. It's just that if the walls are far enough apart, your arc in the jump takes you lower by the time you hit the other wall. So you jump backwards and forwards, but you go downwards. But because you're used to the timing of doing the upwards jump, because you only have to do the downwards jump like one other time in the entire game, when you come to that bit right at the end, I kept screwing it up. It's like, fuck! Do this whole goddamn sequence again.
But overall, I mean, how does it hold up? Because I keep remembering it really fondly, but it's quite old now, so...
It was pretty cool. It was overall pretty awesome. Had some hilarious, voice acting. Terribly bad voice acting in places, of course. And some funny lines.
So how much of it actually relates to the film? Because I saw that this week.
I don't know. I
And
haven't
it's
seen
like,
the film.
I know, but like,
This is going to be a problem.
Like, is this princess woman still got the same name? Is it like Tamina? And does she come from this
No.
holy
I'm
city
fairly sure
or
it's not
something?
Tamina.
It's a different name.
From what I think, I saw the trailer of the film, and from what I can tell, it doesn't look like anything like it.
No. Well, as far as I can tell from what you guys have told me, because I'm in the other state where I've now seen the film and not really played the game, the dagger isn't really that much of a... It's the main plot point, but they don't use it to suck the life out of dudes. It's
Yeah, but the dudes are made of sand. The sand escapes, and then it turns all the people in the castle into bad guys.
Okay.
And they're sort of made of sand.
Yeah, that's completely fucking different.
I haven't seen the film, but I have read like a review or something, and as far as I can gather, it does.
Pretty good, I thought, to be honest. As far as game adaptations go, they haven't ruined the game for me by putting...
Because it's not about the game.
Well, but not only that, they haven't ruined the game by putting shit actors to play the character. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Although, to be honest, the
cool.
characters in the original were pretty shit, judging by their voice acting.
It's not really the strength of the game, the characters. It's a bit of an interesting choice for an adaptation, really, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. But it's I don't know, the story is a bit cliched, let's put it that way, in terms of films, but it's nicely portrayed. There's a bit of the classic parkour platforming element used, because that's just a bit of a film mainstay these days. And they don't rest too heavily on game mechanics. You know what I mean? It's like, it's quite easy to sort of, in some adaptations, like even Tomb Raider to a certain degree, sort of pull on bits of the game too much, like the way combat is done or the way
Right.
The stories never make much sense, that kind of shit. And it's actually pretty good. I enjoyed it anyway. The person I was with, the guy at work I was seeing it with, didn't think too much of it. But I give it a hearty 7 out of 10.
I was faintly interested because when it was building up to the release of the film, because it had Jake Gyllenhaal, and also because it was directed by Mike Newell, and I thought he did a really good job of the fourth Harry Potter film. I mean, he directed 4 Weddings and a Funeral, so I mean that's a really good film. And not an action film, obviously, but I thought he did.
As a man, I can't confirm or deny that.
What do you mean? That film's awesome. That's not a girly film.
You watched that one?
I've seen the ending of it.
Oh, come on. 4 Weddings is not a... 4 Weddings is not a chick flick, man. It's like super awesome. Anyway, okay. Never mind. Believe me.
We always end up catching the bit in the rain at the end.
Oh yeah, that is the worst acting ever from that American woman in that. What's her name? The woman from the L'Oreal adverts. She's
I'm
not
a massive Hugh Grant fan. Let's be honest. With all his would you mind too much if I sort of stammer a bit more and sit here a little bit what's the word?
He's probably most likable in that film. He's probably most likable in that film of any that I've seen him in. I mean, some of the films he's not meant to be. Like About a Boy, he's meant to be a twat, isn't he? So that works out quite well. But in 4 Weddings, people forget. Everyone thinks it's like this lovely family romantic film, but the first sort of 30 seconds or minute of screen time of 4 Weddings and a Funeral is entirely comprised of the word fuck over and over again, and fuckety. It just goes fuck, fuckety, fuck, because they're late for the wedding. It's just a stream of obscenity. So yeah, it's actually
of which I have no
knowledge.
Concern.
Because you have not seen.
Well, I can't say it's a bad thing.
No,
especially if there's a fuckety in there.
There's a lot of fuckety. Yeah, I think that might have invented fuckety because he
sounds like an unfortunate name for someone, doesn't it? Fuckety, fuck. Do come over for tea, fuckety.
It's a very English way of swearing, isn't it?
Fuckety,
fuck. Yeah. So this is a great Saladcast. Lots of swearing going on. But yes, I was interested in the film, but now I don't know, something about I just can't be bothered. I'm not going to say it, definitely.
I was just trying to remember some of the really, really terrible voice acting. There's some obvious where there's like the occasional actually good line, and I mean, maybe it's a bit cheesy at this point. We think of it as more cheesy at this point, but there's the classic bit where they're in the library and Prince Man is like flying over some shit, and he's like, "Stay there, I'm going to go and solve this puzzle or whatever." So he's like, "Look for a book that tells us how to get out of here." And then the woman says, it's not that kind of game.
Oh right, like an adventure game.
Yeah, and he's like, "She thinks this is a game." so cheesy and cliche at this point, but probably at the time that was fairly original.
Do you think we're looking back on this again? Looking at the voice acting, the way Zan said, and that perhaps back then we were more used to shit acting.
Probably,
and that we're so used to the top draw stuff nowadays that maybe it just seems worse. Yeah,
there's no denying.
Well, yeah, Mass Effect.
But there was some severely terrible. There's like the guy quite near the start where it's like it's basically an NPC character because he's like the only guard left alive, and he makes you operate this like
yeah. Is he like
makes
Scottish?
You operate this thing that turns you on? No, he's sort of Cockney-ish.
Yeah, he has some weird accent.
But he's like fake shouting because obviously he's voice acting as if he was shouting into a large room. So he's like, "You did it!"
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that sequence because it's quite an inventive sequence because you have to like it spins around, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you have to move it
lock
up and
the
down.
things into position.
Yeah,
it's not a very complicated puzzle, really.
No, but it's quite cool.
I guess it's quite early in the game.
It's early in the game. Yeah. But
And then
that
you
voice acting is so hilariously, awesomely bad. So funny.
That guy's terrible. That whole sequence is the classic where it's like you turn on all the traps, and then after you've done it, the prince is like, "Why the fuck did I do that?
Why did I turn on all the traps that I now have to pass through?" Yeah. Because it's a game, and that's a bit of gameplay for you.
Speaking of voice acting, right? I've been playing a bit more Mass Effect, which is a bit of a crossover into my section, but what the fuck? Let's just freeform this shit, yo.
Go for
it. And I've got to the section where you meet the what's his Captain Bailey? Is that his name?
The guy from Battlestar, yeah.
Yeah, the guy who's played by Colonel Ty from Battlestar. And it's like,
He's just like a police
please
chief,
tell me he
isn't
has a more important role than just sitting at that desk and that small bit of conversation.
I know, not really. I mean, he it's more than that, okay? But he's mostly there. But that's exactly what I thought when I first came across him. I was like, because I saw a video showing all the awesome people that were in Mass Effect 2, like. And then he turned up and he was this really minor character, and I was like, I was just as annoyed as you. I was like, because he's super awesome.
He has a really, really cool voice, and it's so recognizable, and it just stands out in the crowd.
Yeah, it really stands out, and he's really good. He does a good job of that character, I think.
Yeah, he plays it well.
Yeah, that character. There's more than one storyline involving that character. That's what I'm going to tell you. So once you do him that first time, he's always there. He's never a major character, and he's never a party member or anything, obviously. But he has more than that first role to play in the game. So don't worry too much. But I share your feelings about that.
There's obviously a couple of people that have fairly big roles, like Edie, for instance. The Trisha Helfer character is obviously there all the time, and Seth Green's character has quite a lot of lines, and
obviously Miranda's the biggest probably in terms of like TV actors. Not that I've seen that program that she's in.
I don't recognise her voice. Who's Miranda?
Her voice and her whole look, her face is modelled on an actress from a program called Chuck. Have you ever heard that?
Right. I've heard of the name. I mean, I know the show. I've not watched it, but
I've never watched it either. It's about like a guy who gets embroiled in he's like a geek, and he gets embroiled in like a CIA espionage thing because he hacks into something or something.
Yeah,
and she's
and becomes like a secret agent. But...
Yeah, and she's like the proper secret agent. Anyway, so and I've seen pictures of her, and she looks exactly like Miranda. It's quite scary. Apart from with blonde hair, I think. Because Miranda's got like black, hasn't she? Black hair.
Yeah.
Not that it's very important. Yeah, but I think it's quite because I think it's quite good actually having the likeness and the voice. Because not that I mean,
it must have been easier to sort of get the emotion across if they've seen her face. In the same way that they do when they do CG films, don't they? They record using, they actually camera record all the actors so they can see how they're doing the words and. The emotion they're trying to get across a bit better so they can animate it onto the character.
Well, it's this thing, I don't know if they used it specifically in Mass Effect 2, but they used it in Uncharted 2, and it's called performance capture, I think, where they have like cameras like on a cradle attached to their face, like looking right at them as they do the voice work or whatever, and then it transfers it, motion capture style. So it's not just motion capture for a whole body, it's just for the face.
Yeah.
So
I know the stuff you mean. It's the stuff they originally used to use in music videos, didn't they, to sort of give you that weird shaky face cam shot.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like that. The one that I remember is a Metallica vid. I think for the Metallica song they used in Mission Impossible. I can't remember what it was. I Disappear. That's it. There's a shot. There's those few shots where there's a dude in a crowd or something, and I've used a face cam on him, so he's like getting shoved around, and it's like, but his face is staying perfectly still on screen.
Oh, that's cool, actually.
Yeah. Do you know the shots I mean? They're pretty cool.
I think I do. Like they use it for extreme sports, don't they?
Yeah.
Like if you're on if they're on a bike or something.
But much more stable than those shitty head cams.
Yeah.
More stable than you might get on like Top Gear.
Yeah.
When they need to do a dynamic cam for some reason.
It's quite lame. Yeah. So who? Are we? Oh yeah, the girl from Mass Effect 2. Yeah. But and I like that Michael Hogan, isn't it? The guy who plays Colonel Ty and. Is that right?
Yeah, I can never remember his name, but yeah.
Anyway, he's really good.
And there's the dude who plays Sanderson as well. No, Anderson, sorry. Who's in a lot of stuff.
He is, yeah.
He was in All About Steve, was the last actual film he was in.
Yeah, he's not in Mass Effect 2 very much, though, is he? Like, he's not very important.
No, not as much. He was a bit more important in the first one, wasn't he? But...
Yeah, much more.
And he plays your sort of. I forget his name, but he plays your team leader for a lot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Oh, does he?
As well, yeah. He turns up everywhere.
Yeah, no, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
He's a bit prolific.
It's Nolan North is the guy who's in everything, isn't it?
Yeah. He's always the lead, isn't he, in most?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't realise this, but he actually plays a character in ODST, but I didn't recognise his voice in that. So at least he's got some variety.
Well, ODST's got Nathan Fillion, hasn't it? And that's got his likeness.
And obviously more. It's got Trisha Helfer in it as well.
Oh yeah, but I don't know, because like Halo 3 tech always had the worst faces.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I mean, it's embarrassing.
It's not just the faces; it's the actual whole human animation looks a bit weird and it's like Morph. The cartoon a little bit. Everything sort of moves in that strangely sort of the sudden way.
Well, the worst thing in like the Halo games is always if someone gets blown up and they get thrown through the air.
That was amazing though. They always look swimming.
Well, no, I don't mean the fake ragdolls in game. I mean, like in sequences where someone gets blown up against something, and they're always like they just look kind of weird when they're like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like the classic: something gets hit against the wall, and then they slide down it. So like, dum, dum.
Yeah, it looks slightly sort of cartoon physics.
A bit like my catfish.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go into that no further.
Yeah, but so they while he does look like Nathan Fillion, he really doesn't, because it's Halo 3, you know. And I mean, it's weird because
you can tell it's him, but
yeah,
you couldn't tell, for instance, Trisha Helfer's character. It's only after you know who she is that you sort of go, well, there's a sort of likeness there, but she's a bit too mannish. You know, she does pretty much look like a bloke in ODST, let's be honest.
Which is not how she really looks,
no.
Let's face it. She's like the least blokish looking, apart from being very tall, I guess.
For some reason, in my head, I had that sentence coming out, she's the least blokish looking bloke. That doesn't help.
Looking... and the elusive man looks a bit like Martin Sheen as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, that's a good...
It's not
likeness.
Like it's not spot on as because the Miranda character really is spot on. I haven't seen the show, but I have seen interviews with that actress, and looks identical. So
from your stalking profile.
From my what?
I mean,
my stalking profile. Yeah. I don't know. Interesting stuff. So Mass Effect is what you've been playing then?
Yeah, I'm now 13 hours in. Just got the ability to go hunt the second set of team members, and
oh, cool.
I think Jacob's face looks funny. You know, the way he sort of talks, it still looks a bit odd. Oh, and I had some brilliant glitches as well.
Oh yeah.
There's a section where you can, after you've given the ice brandy to Dr. Chakwas.
Yeah.
Dr. Chakwas.
And
you go back, you get a bit drunk, and I went back later on and sort of said, and she sort of goes, "Well, you hope I wasn't too informal after we had that brandy," and you're like, "No, it was fun." And then for some reason, at that point it cut out of cinematic cam and went back to normal camera. So I go, but she carried on talking, so it's like, right, I'm going to bugger off. And then it cut back to cinematic cam, but I still had control of Shepard. So she's sitting, so these great camera angles of her talking at me, running in circles.
Awesome. So how did you get out? Could you not? You couldn't control the conversation from that point because you had control. No,
it was all scripted at that point, but I could just control Shepard in the room. So it was I'm just running around like a tard while she's talking.
It's really weird.
That was pretty cool.
I liked how Mass Effect 2 got rid of most of the sort of ridiculous elevator loading pauses, but it really annoyed me that in the ship it replaced the ridiculous elevator loading pauses with just loading pauses. It shows the lift moving. Like
I'm told you don't get those on the PC version.
Oh really? Because I don't understand why it has quite big environments, but it can't load the whole ship. I mean,
that's a bit retarded because I don't quite understand why you have to load the captain's quarters, which is one room.
Exactly, and like
it has
that
fish in it.
Holy shit! Oh my god! These fish. They must have the most detail in the game on the fish.
The thing about the fish is the fact that there's a loading pause between the deck and your quarters. That loading pause literally killed my fish over and over again. Like, whenever I bought fish, they always died because I never went up there to feed them because I couldn't be bothered with the loading pause. Now, that just shows you, doesn't it?
Well, the loading pauses in general are pretty epic. They are quite... And they're really annoying. Like, the one that annoys me the most is the loading pause after you die. Because the last thing you want to do is sit there and sort of you want to go, fuck it, I want to get back in there and try again.
Exactly.
You don't want to be sitting there going... I'm still angry.
Yeah, it's like
You've got to
Counter-Strike.
put the rage to use.
Yeah.
I know exactly what
And
you mean.
that happened a lot, actually. I got to the section where you fight the... I hope this isn't giving away too many spoilers, but stop me if it is. Where you fight the Praetorian.
Right.
First Praetorian, hovering tank thing that likes to regen its barrier quite a lot by slamming on the floor.
I remember.
That's the most irritating point in the game so far for a number of reasons. The AI was fucking stupid on my squad. They kept wanting to run at it, at which point they just instantly die. I found the controls irritating in the sense that when I told them, I used the real-time shortcuts a lot of the time to, use their power on this enemy, except for the fact, even though he's a big, huge fucker, and you point your cursor at him, you'll say, use your power, and it will tell them to run behind it. Instead of saying attack the thing I'm looking at, it will place a movement marker because it's on the same bloody button.
Yeah.
So they'll just run into him and then die, which wasn't very useful. And I also found a number of little things, like the camera angle on the character is quite irritating, because if you're backtracking, which you have to do quite a lot in that fight, you tend to bump into bits of cover and stuff. And then you can't see what you're stuck on because it's not quite next to your character, or it's one of those knee-high walls, that shitting thing.
Because they're everywhere, of course. I had that a lot. Backtracking, because that's one of the things about awareness in a 3D environment in shooters is the ability to backpedal when you can't see where you're going, because you know where you've come from.
Yeah, and you just don't have that ability in that section, because there's lots of little... It's not symmetrical area, which is fair enough, but there's just bits everywhere. And that led me on to the next problem, which meant when the thing was shooting at me, because it could kill you pretty damn fast, was that when I wanted to get into cover, I'd often find myself sticking to a bit of wall that was directly in his line of sight, and then found it quite difficult to unstick and move around. So the cover system was quite... I'm used to things like Uncharted or Gears of War, where when you're at the corner of a bit of cover, there's a command you can use to go round the corner. Quite easily.
Or jump across a gap or something.
Yeah, and Uncharted does that probably the best, actually, out of the lot that has that specific control. And I was like, I'm trying to do that, and it's like, no, I'm in the fucking way. No, get out the fucking way. Run, you bastard! And
I would say that Mass Effect 2 is kind of in the middle in terms of cover mechanics kind of quality. Like, it's not the worst, and it's not the best. It's about halfway. It's getting there,
I found that fight is just an example of how bad the system can be in Mass Effect. I mean, it's generally it's not bad, actually. I'll put my hands up and say it's actually pretty good when you get the hang of, because you're able to use powers much more frequently, I find, in the new one, and mix it up a lot more.
It's much more fun that way. I think.
And so you get a little bit more freedom on what to do. But certain scenarios in the game are just evil. And they just... I'm playing as Adept, so I'm...
Yeah, me too. I
completely biotic, which meant that I'm fucking useless against mechs.
Oh, no, I played as the halfway... What's the halfway combat Adept? Sorry, biotic.
Don't know. Sentinel
or something.
Oh, no, I think that's one of the techies, though.
Right, I can't remember, because my ability was the sort of forced charge thing, where you slam up to people and it knocks them over.
Right. No, I didn't have that.
What's your ability?
Because
each one has a special ability, don't they? Like
might be Shockwave or Singularity or something like that. Or...
Yeah, probably one of those, like a super strong version. I can't remember.
Probably Singularity, actually. You might get Warp and all that stuff. And...
What guns do you have? Because depending on the class...
I can only use the pistol and the machine pistol. And a heavy. So...
Do you find... I found at the start of the game, I was constantly running out of ammo for the pistol.
Yes. No, that still happens, actually, and I've had to... It's annoying, because you can't upgrade the ammo without degrading your armour in some way. Like, you have to swap out your gauntlets or something for offhand ammo packs, and then you lose, like, 5% health or something.
Well, that problem gets mitigated later in the game, actually, which is really
I suppose
good.
when you get more... more upgrades, I guess.
This isn't a spoiler, I don't think, but there's a point... it's more than halfway through, I think, slightly more than halfway through, where you go to the ship or whatever, it's part of the main storyline, and you get the ability to... I can't remember, it gave me a choice, but I chose... Because I couldn't use the assault rifles, right, because I wasn't a full-blown soldier. I was a halfway sentinel or whatever they're called. And at that point, it gave me the ability to then use assault rifles. I can't remember. I had a choice between either you get assault rifles or you get some power or something. I can't remember what it was, but I chose the assault rifles, and that meant I could use them. And that was great because that meant I had another option in terms of ammo to use, because the assault rifles are really accurate, like a pistol, and rapid fire, so they're great. I mean, that's probably a good reason for going for soldier. To start off with, if you like those. But I think it was great the fact that the game gave you, it limited you at first to get expert with your class, and then it gave you the stuff you were missing. So hopefully you'll get extra abilities later on, and not
That's
just
cool.
upgrading the abilities you have, but you'll get extra options, which is really nice. I like that.
I also quite liked the structure, how I got to the stage where the game basically says, this is happening right now, you've got to do it now, and rather than having to go back to the map and plotting your own way. I kind of felt that change of pace was quite nice.
Yeah.
Because that didn't really happen too much in the first game until you hit end game.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I am preferring the mission structure in the new one. I don't like elements of the new Galaxy map, like how it takes time to fly about the map. Like, it takes longer to move your ship about than it does to move your cursor.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
Little things like that. And the fuel system, I think, is completely redundant.
It's pretty retarded, isn't it?
Because you have to, basically you go visit a system, go back to the depot. Visit a different system, go back to the depot. Just wastes time.
I think you can upgrade your fuel capacity, so it gives another excuse to spend money on.
I have to say, the patch, my initial thoughts about the patch were right. They did speed up scanning.
Oh, did they?
In the recent patch. So that makes what is quite lame slightly less lame. And then you can upgrade it in the game as well, so you can make it even less lame, but it's still lame.
Okay.
I still think it's really, really annoying, because you can spend quite a long time just scanning planets and maxing out your things, and I'm told that you don't have to do it because you end up with far more materials than what there is to use them on.
Well, the problem is this one of them, Element 0, is really important.
Rare.
And,
it's quite really, rare.
It's rare, and you do find, like all the minerals, you do find them on missions, but if you do find a planet that has Element 0, it really helps, because some of those upgrades...
mine the shit out of it, yeah.
Yeah, some of those upgrades are quite... I mean, the thing is, I don't know... This isn't a spoiler, is it? But the final mission is a suicide mission or whatever, and the upgrades you make to your ship do count towards that final mission. And when I did that final mission, I had everything, so I have no idea what risk there is in not having everything,
Well, I don't know. It's not one of those things you want to try. I don't know. In a game like that, I play completionist style, so it's...
Yeah.
You never see that shit unless you're trying to do it.
Unless you're,
I'm going to upgrade everything, obviously.
Unless you're attempting a speed run or something.
Apparently, some
can you
people
do that? Can you actually just go straight into the end section from the start?
Apparently, not right from the start, but you can go in there without all the party members or whatever it is, or you can do it without the loyalty. You gain loyalty of party members by doing their missions. You can do it without all that stuff, and what will happen is, and without all the upgrades and stuff, and what will happen is you'll go to this suicide mission and everyone will die, including you. You'll just die. It's a possible outcome for the final mission that every single character, including it, will die. So,
which just makes an interesting how they're going to use the death ending in Mass Effect 3. Is Cerberus just going to resurrect you again?
I'm not sure that's canon, that you dying. Oh, it might be. Might be.
Well, because every ending in the first game
has
the ability to carry on some purpose into the second.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, you can definitely...
And also, Ashley Williams, what a bitch she was. It's like, hello, I'm alive. You arsehole!
She's a massive bitch. She was always a bitch, though, kind of. I never liked her.
She wasn't that much of a bitch.
She's lame. And
on the good side and did the naughty, then she was all right.
I did not.
No, she was extremely boring.
No, go with Liara. No. Well, that's what I did anyway. Of course, that
was the first time.
I haven't got the achievement for well, I've talked about this before, but I haven't got the Paramore achievement in Mass Effect 2 because I didn't shag anyone because I stayed faithful to Liara for some reason. So I'm gonna have to play that through again just to get that one achievement.
So, were we talking about this before? How it's possible to get a Quarian now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That must be weird.
Except it's really cheese.
Well, some of the ones are quite strange.
You should sort that out beforehand.
Because if you're a girl,
Jeez.
a girl shepherd, you can get with what's his name, the Turian.
Shunned. What?
Gareth. You can get with Gareth. Isn't that messed up?
That's probably more messed up.
Yeah.
Mandibles.
Oh, also, a weird thing about Gareth is like after the mission when he joins your team, his armor is all fucked up from the or whatever. Like later on, if you do people's loyalty missions, they get an alternate costume.
Oh no, but carry on.
I think they do. Yeah.
I've only just basically unlocked most people's ability to do their missions. So.
All right. Well, once you get loyalty, you get an alternate costume. That's it. It's usually a dark version of the one they already have. So Miranda goes from a white jumpsuit to a sort of black leather kinky.
I should stop playing with that. You can probably hear that.
Yeah. But Gareth's one, I was like, hey, cool. I can get like repaired armor if I get on. Of course, you can't. It's just a dark version of the exactly the same fucked up. Armor.
So he just gets a paintbrush out and goes,
yeah.
I'll just gloss over this.
Exactly. It's totally weird.
It still seems a bit random given the abundance of Turian armor in the first game.
Yeah,
you only have one
true.
fucking character to use it.
That was the worst thing. You'd always get like, oh look, some more fucking Corian armor.
I know. I'm saying
I
didn't get much Corian armor in the first game. I always got heavy armor, and I was a light class. So
that sucks as well.
I got armor for the Rex, the big. What race is he? I haven't played
Krogan.
for a while. Krogan, yeah, Krogan armor, medium Krogan armor. Who's going to use medium Krogan armor? Heavy Krogan armor.
That was the worst thing. Where it's like totally useless class and weight.
Yeah. So what are you thinking now of the streamlined? Because you weren't so sure last time about all the streamlined RPG mechanics. Are you coming?
Yeah, I know. I'm still not convinced by half of it. The point system for the characters I prefer. How it's just larger blocks. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the lack of, I don't know. It's hard to describe. There's just it feels weird not getting XP as you go along and leveling up sort of mid-level, and there are certain elements of the HUD, in fact, that where they've obviously tried to streamline it to make it look a bit more shootery, that I don't like. I still don't like that HUD in the middle with the health gauge and shit. It's too difficult to see what's happening to your squad, and
I thought that was never really a strength of Mass Effect. Like even in the first one, like the shields weren't. Very
it wasn't clear, was it, in the first one? But at least it was there, so you could see it. Whereas now it's there still, but even less clear. It's a step back, I think. But I suppose they do show more information about the gun and stuff, so they've had to make some concessions. You don't even get the radar now. You have to go to pause mode to see the radar, which seems again a bit like a step back, but maybe they're trying to encourage you to fight more tactically or by stopping.
Yeah, well, you are pausing to activate your powers and stuff and change weapons quite a lot anyway, so it doesn't seem.
Well, even though they've made shortcuts to that, like
bumper buttons and stuff.
So you can have 3 shortcuts now, and
that's quite cool. It's perfectly functional as a shooter, and the weapons are quite satisfying for sci-fi weapons. I think they make the sound design and weapon design is quite nice. I find.
It depends what they're like, because some of them don't feel very weighty. Some of the alien weapons don't sound very weighty, but they sound cool coming at you. Probably cooler than actually using them.
Yeah.
Like some of the collector guns with their sort of strange, glitchy sound that they make.
Oh man, have you got the
really cool.
the heavy weapon, the collector particle beam?
Oh, the beam gun, yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet. I love that thing.
It is pretty awesome. Although I've been using the missile launcher up to now, because that's pretty cool.
I've missed out on the achievement somehow. I tried to get it, but you
need
the
Master at Arms?
Yeah, using all 5 of the heavy weapons.
I might have to be able to cheat on that one slightly, because the one of the free DLCs is an extra heavy weapon.
Oh, is it?
That you can use right from the start.
Okay.
That I haven't used yet, but it's called the arc projector. It supposedly paints a target with an invisible laser and then sends a beam of electricity. And then that initial laser could also somehow... They describe it weirdly. You know how most electric guns are like, they'll hit a target and then arc off it onto other targets? This one seems to suggest that there's some sort of targeting happening before that bounces off people and then paints them as targets and then tells the electricity somehow to go that way. It's you didn't really need to go to that amount of detail explaining it. Just say it's fucking electricity and it will kill everything.
Well, it's
Okay.
like how you had the stupid arc welder in Red Faction Guerrilla, where it's like you start with 2 arcs and you can upgrade it to 3 arcs, which means it can hit 3 people at once. But because for some reason electricity is discriminate depending on which one of the points of this arc welder it comes out of, it's like only one of these arcs will go to this guy, and then one will go over here to this guy standing a few feet next to him for some reason.
Yeah. Physics, bitches.
I don't know. It just looks cool, like the prison tanks in Red Alert 2.
Clearly, the only reason to use the arc welder really in Red Faction was to kill people in vehicles. That was the best thing about it. It was like, oh look, you're driving away. I'll just run behind you and keep zapping the back of your truck, and then eventually you'll die because somehow it conducts all the way through the vehicle.
Awesome.
That was useful.
So did you get any more gaming in your limited period this month, Zeg?
Yes.
Month, week?
Month, week.
Go
It
ahead.
was a very long week. Week, in inverted commas.
Week.
Different. No.
With an A.
Yeah, I was. It was like in the middle of you guys talking about Mass Effect. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a convenient segue," and then you carried on talking. It was like, "Ah."
No, you go
So
ahead
what was
now.
the
Then.
link?
It was when you were talking about scanning planets,
Oh,
because
right,
obviously
yeah.
that's what the Eve patch is about.
Hooray.
It was like, oh yeah,
Has it come out then? I thought it was going to be 2 weeks or something.
well, it was the first after our last podcast. It's been long enough since then for the first half of it to come out.
Oh, right. So what's in the first
Although it's
half?
not really a half, like the first small tiny portion, or it's really sort of bug fix. I guess this patch is more bug fixes and less new stuff, because then all the new stuff actually happens in the second patch. But it was really dumb because it was like they scheduled themselves a shit ton of time for this patch. It was like the server went down at like 2 a.m. and they'd scheduled it to come back online at 6 p.m.
Wow, okay.
And everyone was like, oh, they finally realised that they can never actually finish a patch in the amount of time they say they will, so they've just given themselves a shit ton of extra time. But no, they still managed to overrun. 16 hours, they still managed to overrun their time.
Bloody hell.
It was like, what the fuck are you doing?
So it was down for a day.
Downtime.
Yeah, it was down for virtually 24 hours. Well, it's more like 20, really. Well, maybe not even 20.
So,
It must have
and
been
is
getting
it,
on for 20.
but have they made it work, whatever they've done?
Well, the thing is, it's like I didn't really get to play it much because I only played it for that evening before my system died the next day. So it's like when the server came back up, I went straight on, and it was like, oh, thank God, I can finally get into Eve. And it was like, because I mean, obviously they haven't implemented the major thing, which is all the planetary mining systems. So you can't actually mine the planets; you can only scan them. And everyone was under the impression where it's like they obviously need 2 more weeks to make that actually good.
Okay.
So it's like, what was in this patch that took you 16 goddamn hours to put into the server? There's some bug fixes, and then the planet scanning, which doesn't seem like a very complicated mechanic. And then even after they put the patch up, naturally, I've managed to get onto the forums on Dad's computer to read what's been going on. It's like, apparently the patch was still had quite a few bugs in it. It was like, so you spent 16 hours, you overran that 16 hours, then you got the server up, and you still didn't actually manage to make a bug-free patch go through. Like, what are you doing?
So you haven't had a chance to play this patch then?
I mean, I managed like 3 hours or whatever after the server came back up to start scanning some planets. Because I was like, holy shit, data!
Did you go to that weird planet yet?
No, I hadn't got around to that system yet. It was just like I was progressing through like this sort of. It's basically a sort of a loop of systems that I go around normally when I'm doing other non-planet scanning stuff. It's like I search these set of systems that are conveniently linked up in a nice loop, so I come back to my start location,
Okay.
and
So
those are the ones that I was looking at for planets.
anything interesting about the scanning so far?
It's actually pretty funny as a system, where it's like, because the weirdest thing about it is you can do it from in a station and from multiple
What?
systems away. It's like you don't have to undock. You don't even have to be in the same system as the planet you're looking at. You can just go, I'm going to look at this planet some miles away, and the skill that's related to it that that they put the skills in for everyone to start training the skill that's related to that is rated in like light years. So it's like you can scan any planet within 1 light year at level 1, and then that goes up. It goes up like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and it's like if you had, I mean, light years is an utterly meaningless number on the Eve map because there's no scale. It's like there's no way to tell how far a light year is. So you're like, what does this mean? But then I was like, okay, so obviously the only way you can tell is to see what the furthest away place you can scan is. So I was just like, okay, try this system. It's like, so from what I can see, the sort of, when you've got this skill to level 3, which is like 5 light years, that's ridiculously far. That's like an entire region you can scan without having to leave a station.
That's a bit unrealistic in terms of actual density of stars in the universe, isn't it? Because there's multiple light years between stars in the Milky Way.
It's a utterly weird choice to have it rated by light years and not just like you normally expect by jumps or whatever.
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense in terms of the game world.
I mean, it's the same. I mean, there are other things that are measured in light years in the game already, like jump beacons, where the capital ships can set up a beacon that they can jump to, and their jump drives use fuel per light year or whatever. So when they make their non-gate jumps, it uses a certain amount of fuel for the light year distance between stars.
So if you have enough fuel, or can you jump the whole length of the galaxy?
No, it's less than that. It's like even with the maximum jump distance on the capital ships, it's not that far.
Because of the fuel capacity?
Yeah. And because of the skills are limiting it as well, obviously.
Oh, I see.
I don't know what the maximum on that is. More than 9 light years, I'm fairly certain.
Okay.
But that was pretty weird. So you can scan from inside stations, which I found quite... It's always slightly confusing, mainly because of the UI, which, again, they've utterly failed to make a decent UI for something in EVE, as they always do. Where it's like... Because when you go into planet scanning mode, like, the station that you're in disappears, obviously. So you're like, oh, look, now I'm looking at a planet somewhere.
Right.
But it says the name of the system you're in at the top left of the screen always. So it's like, that's, it doesn't actually show that when you're in station, but when you're in space, it always shows you where you are in like the top left. But that stays on the planet scanning interface. So the actual system that the planet's in is like further down.
So regardless of what planet you're looking at, it's always going to say, where you're docked.
At the top left, and then like mid left, it has where the planet is, which can get kind of confusing. And obviously, the other problem is you're just looking at a planet. It's like there's no, because you don't. If you're in the system, you have like the overview or whatever that tells you what's in your local area, and like you can see all the planets in the system and like stations and stuff. But then with planet scaling mode, it's just here's a planet floating in some miscellaneous space, not related to the star or anything either, because. Obviously, when you're looking at the planet, you can rotate the planet, and the bit of planet you're looking at is always lit. It doesn't like have a day-night cycle. The day-night cycle follows your camera basically, so it's always lit on the side you're looking at.
So your imaginary probe that's looking at this planet, could be systems away, has a gigantic torch on it that lights the planet like a huge sun.
Yeah, except obviously in this scanning interface, the sun doesn't even exist. It's like you can't see it in the background or whatever.
But does it look like a virtual space, like inside a computer instead of the actual...
No. I mean, obviously, the whole conceit of EVE is that the entire thing is a computer-generated view of what the pod pilot would see, because he's linked directly into the ship systems.
Right, yeah.
So, that's like, obviously it kind of makes sense from that perspective. It's like, this is just a computer-generated view of the planet, but... It's not made to look like a computer-generated view within a computer-generated view.
I see. And this is the kind of stuff that's not going to change when the whole patch is finished. This is it.
This is just
now.
how it's going to be.
Okay.
And it's not even there's nothing complicated about the planet scanning. It's like once you have the skill trained to 1, you go, look at this planet, and it says, here's what the resource levels, which is like, here's 5 bars that tell you how proportionally abundant each resource is. And then you click on one of the resources, and it goes scanning for like 10 seconds, and then it shows it colours the map of the planet with like, hotspots or whatever to show you where the hotspots of resources are on the planet. And then there's a slider you can move to make the hotspots more or less visible, so you can like filter out low densities easier.
So do you click on the hotspots and then mind them?
Well,
Or,
no,
well,
you don't
you
yet
will.
because they haven't released that patch.
Okay, but you will.
But once, obviously, that's all there is to scanning. Is just like look at the map. You don't actually have to do anything.
Well,
It's
that's
not
probably
like,
a relief. It's not like Mass Effect 2. Can you imagine that in a MMO where you had
That
to...
might make Eve a bit more interesting.
well, yeah, that's the thing. It was like I always
I
thought.
love
it was
how
like,
Rob thinks like the most interesting thing about Eve would be the worst part of Mass Effect 2.
Well, most of Eve is pretty hands off. Let's be honest. A little mini game addition.
yeah,
Would be,
it was like that's almost what I was hoping for. Because I mean, the way it was like when I can't remember when this was, but I read the forum like of Eve quite some time ago, and everyone was complaining about mining again, as they do. In fact, they probably never not complaining about mining. But it was like, how can you make mining interesting? It was like, well, obviously you attach some kind of mini game to it, and it's like, oh, but won't that just piss everyone off who wants to semi AFK mine or whatever? And it's like, well, okay, make
Then
the
you have a
mining game
skill for-
optional.
Then you have a skill for AFK mining.
Well, yeah,
Just call it that.
or you make it so that the minigame is optional and it only increases mining above its current level. So you can AFK mine
that's
at
true.
whatever level you do it at the moment. But then if you're there to do the minigame, you get a slight bonus.
Yeah.
It was like, why not? That would make sense. But
And then you could like hire newbies to do your minigames for you.
with the Chinese server farm of there's some guys who are going to do your minigame all day.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's like there needed to be something more. I mean, the whole idea of this planetary mining thing, what theoretically will come up in a couple of weeks' time when they finish the patch, is kind of not even very complicated either. It's slightly more of a sort of a game because you find the hotspots of the minerals, and then you put down your extractors, and then you link them up to the factories or whatever. But then obviously the relative positions of those things, the links take power grid and stuff, so you have to optimize your network or whatever for distance. And then the resource, well, no, I think they said that the resource maps aren't going to change. They'll just, if you keep mining the same spot over and over, it will gradually deplete, but only to a certain point. Because originally they were going to have it so that the actual, if you mined a hotspot for long enough, it would like move those resources to another point of the map. But they got rid of the idea of changing resource hotspots, which is probably going to remove another sort of game element of it.
Although it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, no. It doesn't make any sense that the resources would move around. But then it also
Like, holy shit, we're being mined.
also
Take it,
doesn't
lads.
make any sense that the resources will never run out if you stay in the same space.
Man.
It's kind of like how asteroids work in Eve. It's like you strip mine the entire belt so there's not a single asteroid left, and then after downtime, ding, they've all reappeared.
Yeah, makes sense. Man, I'm starting to find this Eve talk quite boring now.
Well,
Finally.
theoretically, I won't have to talk about this for another 2 weeks
Oh,
at
no,
most.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
at
you
least.
get your nice new computer.
If I can get back onto it.
Yeah.
I'm stealthily planning on installing it on the Mac.
Does it run on Mac? Because World of Warcraft
Yes.
does, doesn't it? I mean, of
I
course,
can get
Steam
onto
works
it on
Mac
Mac.
now. So you can play TF2
Not
on
intending
Mac.
really to play it on the Mac. It was more like just be checking on my skills. Because obviously when the patch came out, they put all the planetary interaction skills on. I was like, okay, I'll just buy all of those because there's only like 5 of them and they're all pretty cheap. Inject them and then start training them. And it's like, put them all in my skill queue. But that's only like 24 hours of skill. I'll have to come back and add some more skills onto this queue.
Inject skills.
Yeah, that's what it's called. You
Okay.
can. It always used to be that when you got a new skill book and you wanted to not be carrying a skill book around, you just started training and let like 1 or 2 skill points go in, and then you stop it and go back to whatever you're doing. But now you can
Kung Fu.
now you can just inject the skill at level 0, and it just stays in your list blank,
Fair enough.
and then you can put it into your skill queue.
That makes a bit of sense.
Yes,
How long have they had the queue? Because I don't remember that when I...
that's
I
only been in
only
there
played
like
it for like a couple of weeks during its inception.
it's not anywhere near to when you last played.
Yeah.
It's the last couple of patches ago, I think, they put this queue in. It's only a 24-hour queue, so you can only queue up something. If your skill ends within the next 24 hours, you can put
Oh,
the
I
next
see. Okay,
skill on to
yeah.
the end of it.
To keep you in the game, I assume.
Yeah, and to make it easier when you're training skills that only take an hour or whatever. So you can queue up like a shit ton of those and then log off. So you don't have to, it was the classic problem with like when you're making a new character and it's like you want to maximize your skill training time, so you have to be training something all the time. But every skill you've got is only like an hour or two, so you have to stay up all night changing your skills, or set an alarm at 3 a.m. to get up and change your skills.
Oh, cool.
But no, you don't have to.
You need to use auto hotkey to play Eve for you, basically. I'm sure you could work it out.
You don't get to be macro.
Yeah, someone can macro.
Then you'll get banned. All those macro miners. Booted them. Fucking up the economy. And then more fucking up the economy when they get banned, which is the best thing.
Why? Because it removes them from... And then that changes the market.
Yeah. It's like... I partially read some of the last economic report that economist does about Eve, for Eve, and I was like, oh, look at this stuff, because they were talking about the last time they banned a shit ton of gold farmers or macro miners or whatever you call them. It was like, oh, look at these graphs where it's like there's a sudden spike in price, gasp. But then someone on the forum was coming up with some ridiculous theory about how everything would insanely screw up if you removed all the macro miners. It was like, well, yes, probably. I'm sure they'll work out how to do it.
Well, they'll always find a way, won't they? Gold farmers, macro miners. I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's always a way. Where there's a will.
There's too much Chinese drug money relying on it.
Obviously, and they don't want to macro mine on their own server, although they probably do, I guess. I don't know. I've never seen the Chinese server, so I wouldn't be able to say how macro miney it is. Stop picking your teeth.
Yeah, I made this thing where I started biting on a nail, and now that bit of nail is now stuck in between my couple of teeth. I've got to get it out.
See, this is the advantage of having you two in the same room where you can just complain about each other's stuff.
Stop picking your teeth.
So anyway, I should probably talk about what I've been playing, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you probably should. Or otherwise it'll come to the last 5 minutes and then we'll be like, oh, there, what have you been playing? Fuck.
This is actually the most relevant news of, in terms of
I guess.
time.
Release dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, release dates. So I got Red Dead Redemption on the day of launch, I guess. Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. I'll talk about that first. But I immediately,
a good TV advert.
I watched 3:10 to Yuma, but then I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I happen to have on DVD. I haven't watched for a while, and man, that film's good. Have you seen that film?
No.
Oh, that score is incredible. That and that it comes in at different moments, and it's like a motif, and like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly each have a different version of it, because the good has the flute. The flute,
the trombone or tuba version.
Yeah, well, the good has a flute, which is quite high, and then the bad has like an ocarina, which is a bit lower, and then the ugly has the human bit, and then they all have wah wah wah. It's such a brilliant score, and it's got like these sound effects and stuff, and gunshots and stuff going on in the background of it. It's
sound effects.
Well, you know what I mean. That's quite unusual in a musical piece. But yeah, oh man, how come everything made in the '60s was super awesome? Oh man, that was a good decade. But yeah, that film's great.
Bet we should try and find things that weren't awesome now.
Just
to ruin your view of it.
Oh no, there were plenty of crap things, I'm sure, especially in Britain. Like there were mostly American things in the '60s that were brilliant, like the Space Race and and brilliant films like Bullet and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all those awesome, cool stuff. And Clint Eastwood just being amazing. Anyway, so the game, Red Dead Redemption. I hope you guys have some questions about it, because I've played it all the way through now. I basically had nothing else to do this week, so it's 35 hours roughly. And yeah, so I don't really know where to start. So I hope you guys have some questions. It is.
Is it good?
Yeah. I really liked it, but
are we gonna have to do this in like formal review style, like GT or something? So it's like the first step is talk about the design of the game.
Well,
whatever that means.
Like it's the game flow, as I'm calling it. How do you play it?
We'll do it informally and stuff, but basically, the first thing that strikes you when you start playing it, the first thing that strikes you is it is Grand Theft Auto. So immediately, like the first thing that strikes you is the similarities with GTA 4, and then it starts to develop its own sort of personality after that. So let's talk about the design, shall we, or the flow, the game flow.
That's the sort of ident for design.
I remember.
So, what do you guys want to know about it? I mean, because you're not such big fans of GTA 4.
No, well, my biggest concern, as you say, about the fact that it is Grand Theft Horse.
It is.
Well, my initial thought was the presentation seemed a bit off, as we talked about last week, I think, and that it seemed to borrow too heavily from GT in terms of its the way it displayed info to you, and it seemed a little out of place.
Right. Well, it still does, and what you're talking about, the minimap, is correct. It still has. That's probably the most direct connection, probably, other than the engine. The fact that it looks like a Rage Engine game, just like an Unreal Engine game looks like an Unreal Engine game. I mean, you notice that with the characters and just the way it's rendered, and the cutscenes are just like GTA, where the characters are rendered with that sort of mocap look, and then it cuts out to the game. That's exactly the same. Obviously, completely different setting, completely different story characters and everything, but it's still that same style. The map is probably the closest, because that mini-map is the same, right? Just as you noticed. It doesn't look that modern because it's got like a distressed look around it, so it makes it look part of the game. And the thing that makes it different is the font. It has its own font, distinct from Grand Theft Auto. That's a sort of Western style for displaying information.
Maybe. But I still didn't think it sort of stood out in that. I don't know what it is. There's something about the fact that they use the same sort of, perhaps colouring in the same positioning of the text,
Yeah, well, it still does that thing where it'll tell you, it tries to inform you by bringing up like a text box using like the top left corner or whatever, saying,
I don't like that.
This is what happens, this is what you do, and sometimes it'll tell you information you know and you want to skip past it, and sometimes it'll tell you stuff that's really important and it skips past it before you have a chance to really read it. So that kind of stuff.
I always had a problem with that anyway, because it seems like the weakest part of GTA's presentation.
Right, those text boxes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't find them that bad, but I know what you mean. But they're not that. It's not that heavy on it. I think you've got a little bit of a disproportionate view of it because, and it's the same with Red Dead Redemption. There's a lot of that stuff to start off with because the game has to teach you everything. Okay, and the first bunch of missions, just as in Grand Theft Auto, in Red Dead Redemption, they're all tutorials, effectively. They're really fun, like, they're really well thought out, and they work in the game world, and they make sense in terms of the story, but they are effectively trying to teach you how to play the game, and that takes quite a while in this game, because there's so much to do. There's so many little mechanics and stuff. It's just like with Grand Theft Auto, driving the cars, and, all the shooting mechanics and stuff it has to teach you. In this, it has to teach you how to herd cattle. It has to teach you how to lasso horses. And
I'd imagine the drive-by style mechanics probably work better because you don't have to worry about crashing into shit.
Yeah, now that is a key part. I mean, the
dangerous cactuses.
Yeah, the combat is good. Okay, it's vastly improved on because that's been a weak point in sort of Grand Theft Auto. The combat in this is really very good. It's it's probably the most useful form of that, the snap to target thing where you go into zoom and it snaps to the nearest enemy. This is it's quite heavy on it, right? And this is probably the most useful I've ever found, that snap targeting, because I was always useless with it in Call of Duty because I tended to like to aim myself, But in this, it's really
I still can't get the hang of that.
Yeah, well, in this, it's really quite important because it kind of locks on more Metroid style onto moving targets when you do that snap thing, which is really important on horseback. Like, it's useful in your normal ground combat, but there's a lot of, as you can imagine, firing from horseback at other people moving on horseback. And the game does a really good job of making you feel powerful in that respect, because you can snap to those targets in normal mode and just shoot them off the horses or whatever. And then it's also got the Deadeye thing, which is you click down on the right stick to activate it, and it goes into bullet time. And then you can, there's different upgrades to it. At first, what happens is you sweep your crosshair over the enemies, and it'll put little red X's it will click little red X's on them, and then when you fire, it will shoot all those X's in one very quick go. So it's like the westerns where the character will shoot.
Do you not think that's quite similar to the Splinter Cell mechanic that they introduced in the new one? The sort of insta headshot.
Yeah, it's sort of. In Mark and Execute, it's a bit more tactical because it's like you choose them very deliberately beforehand. It's less of an action mechanic in that respect. It's like because that's an almost an auto play the game button, isn't it? Whereas this is more visceral because you have to aim, and because you have a meter with the dead eye, like bullet time, just like in Max Payne.
You can't use it that much.
No, you do end up using it quite a lot, but like the quicker when you go into bullet time, the quicker you assign targets and shoot and get out of it, the more you'll still have in your meter to use the next time, right? And killing enemies outside of Deadeye will refill the meter faster. It will go up slowly on its own, right? So the typical missions involve a lot of shooting. So generally, you'd shoot normally using the snap to targeting thing, and then for awesome situations where there's like a ton of people coming at you at once, you'll snap into it and you'll do them all at once, and it'll look really cool because you can target. Once you get the second level of it, then you, instead of just sweeping the crosshair over them and it automatically targeting whatever you're pointing at, like head and chest and whatever. Once you get the second mode, then you can choose the individual shots by clicking the right bumper. So once you got to that point, you can headshot 6 people in a row, like bam, 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 and it's just super cool. Yeah, so the combat is God, there's so much to talk about.
You made 7 bangs there.
Well, okay,
got a 7-chambered gun. That would be awesome.
There are. I mean, you've got 6-chambered revolvers, right, which is the basic, and there's various versions of that, and then you've also got, because it's set in 1911, you've also got like automatic
SMGs.
Pistols. There's no SMGs, but there's automatic pistols, and there's repeater rifles, and there's machine gun. What are they called? Gatling guns in places, mounted Gatling guns.
So it's
sometimes
a bit more modern than your average Western, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like a lot of the story goes into like portraying this world that's coming to an end. Like there's telephones around, and there's later in the game there's actually cars, literally like Model T, Ford Model Ts and stuff, and there's like all this new technology is coming, and the whole of the Old West is sort of coming to an end.
Well, that leads to an interesting point. Is that are they leaving themselves room for the inevitable sequel?
This is an interesting point. I think the story is brilliant, and I can't talk about the ending, which I really want to because of spoilers, because it's a brilliant ending, but I don't think this is going to have an immediate sequel. In fact, I think they're more likely to... I think this is interesting. I think they're more... Because with Grand Theft Auto, there's going to be sequel after sequel, right? But
sure.
With these guys, at Rockstar San Diego, they've got that GTA tech, and they've made this brilliant Western game. Basically, like, the best Western game I could want, okay? And I think the next thing they'll do will be something else. It's like, I think they're going to do one-offs.
I was about to suggest that. You reckon they'll drop the Western theme and then sort of try and say, well, what else can we GTA?
Well, is the character you play young enough to maybe have him like leave the West and then become a gangster in like 1920 or something?
Imagine that. That would be cool. GTA, like, gangster. GTA 50s.
Gangster, but gangster.
Actually gangster rather than gangster. Booyah.
Without giving away the ending, yes, that could sort of work. But
Tommy gun.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I've been putting a little bit of thought into what they could do. I mean, I can't really think, because it's like Grand Theft Auto, that GTA 4 works so well, and this works so well, but it's hard to think of other things they could do. I mean, they obviously...
Batman.
Oh god.
I don't know. The only thing
just vigilante around the city going, shit, yeah, criminals.
The only thing I think of so far is like a sort of maybe a Blade Runner, like Grand Theft Future, where you fly around in flying cars around the city.
I'm surprised that hasn't been done already, to be honest. Although Crackdown, you could argue, is the closest thing to that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to the game in hand, though. Like, because one of the things about GTA that annoyed you probably the most was the way that people keep ringing you up and asking you to do stuff, right?
Yeah. I suppose you don't have a mobile in this.
That pissed you off. Yeah, there's no
Smoke
mobile
signals.
phones in the
Oh,
Old
fuck.
West.
Yeah, there's some shitty smoke in the distance. Oh, I'm going to have to ride all the way fucking there on my super slow horse.
Yeah. Well,
Donkey.
okay, let's talk about the horse riding.
You're saying
There
I
are-
have a donkey?
There are donkeys in the
Okay.
game. There are donkeys in the game. I think you can ride them. I've never actually tried. I've seen other people riding them. I'm sure you can ride donkeys in this game. Oh, and I also made a count of gringos. It's not as many as I'd hoped, but there is one.
No.
There is one legitimate gringo, like ridiculous Mexican saying it. Okay, that's as soon as you come into Mexico, and then there's another ironic gringo where an American guy says it.
Gringo?
He says
That's
it
not
as like a
ironic.
joke.
Okay.
He says it as like a joke. Like, he's American, you're American in Mexico, and he's like, oh, hey, gringo. And it's sort of funny. But,
Dude.
yeah.
Gringo.
Dude,
Yeah.
whoa, gringo.
You come to see the taco show.
So, so,
It's your own fault. You should have told me about that one.
Oh, I'm sorry about the taco show thing. But yeah,
That's
so
foul.
instead of that thing where people, hey, you want to go bowling and all that rubbish, okay.
Hey, Nico! Fuck off.
In this game, there's an awful lot. There's less normal missions. Well, not less, but like, you know those stranger missions that happen occasionally in GTA 4 where there's someone on the street corner who you just walk up to. You see them on the minimap, and you walk up to them, and they're like a little story that's like aside from the main story.
I can't remember, though.
Okay,
Do they
they're
happen quite late on, or?
No, they happen all the time, but they're quite rare. What happens is a little bloke will appear on your... a little man symbol will appear on your radar, and you just walk up to them. And if you just run away, they'll disappear off your map, okay? But if you walk up to them, they'll have a little story. Well, in this, there's a lot more of those, and they're not a lot more obvious, so you won't miss them. But they're called stranger tasks, okay? And they're
Stranger danger.
little vignettes, and then there's less of the main story missions. But then, the thing that happens in this game is, you'd think, because GTA, right, it's a massive city, there's people everywhere, right? Westerns have to be lonely, right? Because you have to have the whole landscape to yourself, you have to ride off into the sunset. So that could be bad from a gameplay point of view, because it's like, it's cool in concept, but in actuality it's vast stretches of nothingness, right? Which would be
Unless
really
you have a
lame.
monologue with your horse.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not more
So-
like if you're with someone,
Well,
even a horse.
it's not like a horse can talk back.
Yeah, so it's a
No.
monologue, but not with the horse.
Yeah, unless the horse can sort of like nod or flick an ear in a certain way that you respond to. Yes, that's right. I love you too.
So what there is these lots and lots of different kinds of ambient events can happen to you during the game that you can just go past. Stuff that just happens in the world, and there's a whole variety of them. So, because you think, okay, so for example, you're in a town, right? Someone runs up to you and says, shit, someone just stole my horse. Can you go and get them and stop them, right? So you run off and you either shoot the guy and
Get
you
them
lasso
and stop
him and
them.
hog tie him, and you bring the horse back to the guy, right? Okay. The first time that happens, you think, oh, really cool. Okay, that's going to get annoying, though, because that's going to happen all the time. But what actually happens is there's a ton of these different things that can happen. Like,
So at least
stagecoaches-
it's not always a you need to go horse hunting
No.
or something.
There's these
that's
things
cool.
these random things can happen to you, and they do happen to you all the time, which makes the actual experience much less sort of lonely, because they can happen. And at all times, you can just bugger off past them. You don't have to engage with them at all. So if you're on your way to a mission, you could just ignore whatever the hell is happening on the side of the road. What will happen is on your...
That's not awesome, though. That's not awesome when you see something and it's like, hey, we need your help, and then you're just like, whoosh. I mean,
Yeah, so-
that's fine if you're deliberately being a jerk or something, and
Yeah.
it actually has an effect that you're being a jerk. But if it's just you go past them and it doesn't matter at all, that's not awesome.
Well, if you talk to them and sort of activate the quest or whatever, it doesn't have a big cutscene or anything. And then you leave them or whatever. Then it has an
Presumably these
instant
are
effect.
generated randomly.
Yeah, so they're generated randomly. And there's a ton of them. Like, some guy will come up to you and say, help, my friend's going to be lynched. And you have to go over and shoot the bad guys, but also have to shoot the rope of the person that's going to get... Because otherwise they'll hang to death. Stuff like that. I mean, there's a guy on the side of the road, he needs a lift back into town, and you help him into town. Another time, there's a woman on the side of the road next to a coach saying, I need a lift into town. And then a bunch of guys come out of nowhere and try and rob you, right? So they're tricking you. And the first time I got totally fooled by that. Like, sometimes they're good guys, sometimes they're bad guys. All kinds of stagecoaches are getting robbed by people. Like, the first time I went into town, like, this was
everyone was getting robbed. Holy fuck!
Yeah, no. What happened was just like in the films, like a whole bunch of bad guys came in on horses shooting. You know how they run through the western town, sort of randomly shooting and like grabbing women, and you know how that happens. Yeah, and doing that. Okay,
coming home.
And I thought, what the fuck is this part of the mission or something? And it wasn't. It was a random event. And this was the first time I'd gone into town, and I'd never done any shooting or anything. But I had a gun, and I was like, fuck this. And I just shot back and killed them all. I was like, yeah, and you get a reward for it or whatever. And
did you have a button for grit your teeth or sort of, stand them down or something? If you were to just casually,
cool.
Do you have a slow walk button?
Cool.
Or a slow walk button, or make
the mosey button.
Make your what they call.
No, it's not mosey though. When you're like facing someone off.
No, you're right.
Well, spurs. That's it. Can you make your spurs clink extra loud for effect, so they can hear you walking into the middle of their path, just sort of clink,
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 clink, and then you push the grit teeth button, and then you sound like Mr. T.
You don't need like a clink button. You need like a silence button that makes everything else in the vicinity suddenly go quiet.
And a tumbleweed.
Crowd hush.
Yeah.
And there is tumbleweed in the game, although it doesn't happen. You don't see it very often, so it doesn't get really cliched. But yeah, another thing that will happen is
that's one cliche I'm happy with.
Yeah, you can follow it around totally. And like
awesome. That would be the most awesome way to play the game. Especially don't do anything apart from what you see while following the tumbleweed.
Especially if it led you to secrets. It's the Uber tumbleweed.
Another thing that can happen is someone in a town can challenge you to a duel just randomly out of the blue. They're like, fuck you, do you want a duel? And you're like, totally. You kick their ass in a little awesome dueling minigame. And there are also duels as part of missions, but that's one of the main ones, is just some guy by the side. And there's so many of these little things.
Do duels always result in the guy who asks you to duel getting killed? Or can you, like, non-lethally kill him? Non-lethally kill him?
You can... I always murder them to death, right? But you can.
People would learn not to ask for duels, although obviously they only do it once, and then they don't learn because they're
idiots. Yeah, they're idiots. Or maybe they've won previous duels in the past, and they think they can kick your ass. That's probably why. But like, you can, I think, target their gun and their hat or something like that. So you can shoot their gun.
My hat's come off. I'm totally disabled now.
Yeah, because
surely if you aim for the hat, that's a bit of a risk because they could still hit you.
Yeah, it is a risk. Okay, you can shoot the gun out of their hands, I think, but you can certainly do that in normal Deadeye because that's one of the things.
If you shoot them somewhere on the body that's not lethal, is it not lethal? Like if you do an arm shot, do they not die?
Well, in normal combat, I'm not sure about duels because duels work in a special way where you have to assign a whole bunch of shots in order to build up your meter in order to fire first, because otherwise they'll fire first and kill you. So I'm not entirely sure about that. But in the normal game, you can shoot people in the leg and it doesn't kill them. And there are bounties that you can collect, and you get double, you wanted, dead or alive, and you get double the money for bringing them in alive, right? So the way you bring them in alive is you can shoot them in the leg to disable them and stop them shooting at you and stuff. But the way you bring them in alive is to use the lasso, and you lasso them and then you hog tie them. You know, where you tie up their hands behind their back and tie their legs together.
Presumably, there's no spit roasting.
Well, you can then put their complaining arse on the back of your horse and bring them back into town.
Just the arse.
Your reward. Or the rest of them. Yeah. So that's like a bounty hunter mission. You can do them. They're completely optional, and you can do them for money, which is really useful for buying up ranks and stuff. That's one of the things I like most about it. Is all this stuff.
You said blowing up penguins.
Blowing up penguins?
Although that'd be a whole different game.
But all this stuff is optional.
Grand Theft Antarctica. Yeah.
Grand Theft Antarctica.
Steal some snowmobiles.
Ride a polar bear.
Polar bear. That would be fun. There are bears later in the game, and they freaking kill you. Let me tell you. And they're everywhere as well. Once
Can't
you get
you
up
outrun
into the
them on a
mountains.
horse?
Yeah, you can on a horse, yeah. But the problem is...
why would you ever get off? Just live on the horse.
You might need to shit.
Well,
shit
you do spend... You do spend most of your time on the horse, like, and that's another great thing. Is like
go off the back and claim it was the horse.
the horse is Epona style. You can whistle, and your one horse, that is your horse, will appear out of nowhere. So you never have to, unlike in Grand Theft Auto, you never like stuck without a horse, and you never have to steal anyone else's horse. You can steal other people if you want to be a dick, but one of the cool things about it is it has an honor system like an RPG, like Mass Effect or whatever. It has dark side and good side or whatever. And so if you commit crimes, it'll go onto the bad side, and otherwise it'll be a good side. But in terms of the character and the story, you're pretty much a good guy. Like, you do end up killing a lot of people, but they're almost always bad guys. Well, they're always bad guys, right? And you do all these little things like bringing people's horses back to them and all these nice things, and you get your honor rating. And you're basically playing a good guy. You never have to, like, steal. Because I found that a bit of a problem with Nico's characterization in that you seem like a good guy.
Yeah.
And then,
well, it's the GTA games in general, isn't it? I don't know, since they sort of characterize them a bit too much, it's hard to get the enjoyment out of being a douche.
Yeah, because GTA 3, your character
there's something
didn't
about
have
us,
any
I think, where we're sort of used to playing the good guy, I think, and then all of a sudden you're the asshole, and it's like, I don't really want to be doing this. I could be killing my income.
Except he's not an asshole.
Well, Nico is.
I'm assuming he's got an asshole.
No, that's the trouble with Nico, isn't it? Because it's
he's completely unscrupulous, though. Nico, he'll do anything for money.
Yeah,
literally.
He's not necessarily a bad guy. He'll just do it.
Yeah,
but then it's like he doesn't just go around stealing shit, because that's not what.
No,
he only does it if it's necessary. Surely that's the idea.
Yeah, but there's a dichotomy there, isn't it? It's not really necessary. I mean, Nico's a good guy who will sell drugs and murder people for money. That's not a good guy, really, is it? Whereas John Marston from Red Dead, he's pretty much, you play the whole game through, as a good guy if you want, and you never feel weirded out by that. There's never a problem there. Do you know what I mean? Like, he still kills people, lots of people, but they're always rebels or, like, people who are doing bad things. And that's the great thing about the Western setting is, because in Grand Theft Auto...
Did you just not kill any not bad people? It's like, can you just go around and murder a bunch of hookers for no reason?
Yeah, you can murder hookers. And that's the other thing. Like, you're married, your character is married, and so every time
so murdering hookers makes her feel better?
When hookers come up and say, hey, do you want a good time? You say, no, I'm married, I'm sorry, which is really interesting and quite unusual for a game. And then you have a family and stuff, and I don't want to spoil anything.
They get kidnapped.
They're already kidnapped at the start of the game by the government, right? You know that from the start, okay? They're being held. The story is that you were an outlaw, and but you got out of that life, right? And you
got out of your outlawishness.
Yeah, you tried to settle down.
Obviously.
Yeah, you became an in-law.
If you're married, he already was.
So you get out of that life and you try and settle down, but the government come in and they blackmail you into hunting down the old members of your old gang.
Is that
what?
Is that a technical term?
What?
Hunting down.
Hunting down? I didn't say that.
That's what I heard as well. It was so hilarious. I was just like, just as that happened, it's like, just turn to Rob and look to see whether he's realised.
What did I say? I didn't say anything of the sort. What did I say?
We'll have to check that on the playback. And perhaps bleep that.
Oh, that was
I didn't
funny.
say that. Jesus. Anyway. Bloody hell. Anyway, so, so you have to get the old members of your old gang. I don't understand. I didn't say anything like that. Anyway,
we shall see.
We shall see.
It's funny nonetheless.
So you're trying to get these guys who used to be in your old gang. And at times it gets a bit ridiculous. Like, you start out in America in an area that is supposed to correspond to sort of Arizona, I think. Sort of Texas, Arizona area. Like the proper Old West kind of area. Mm-hmm. And that's the initial area. And then you end up chasing the guys that you're after down into Mexico, and then there's a whole Mexican Revolution story, and you end up working for all different sides of the rebels and the government, and they all treat women really badly, and for some reason.
This is making it sound epically long.
It is. Well, I told you it's 35 hours. But, well,
Oh, it's not that bad then, actually.
No.
'Cause I was worried it was going into the sort of extreme RPG style.
No, it's not
lengths.
as long. It's not as long as GTA 4 in
I
terms of
forgot to
story.
mention earlier that
I think
say.
30 hours is a good length for a
Yeah.
game in terms, of a single playthrough at least. It's a good length for
Yeah.
something that keeps you hooked at least. That's about the right amount of time.
I
Beyond
agree.
that, you start to lose interest.
I think it's safe to say that Rob can in fact manage to play Prince of Persia if he wants to, because that was only 6.5 hours.
Hooray! I might
Yeah.
manage that one.
But this one, yeah, I did. Bear in mind, I did all the like ambient challenges that are in the game as well, and also I played poker, which is one of the side games. Like in GTA, there's like pool and darts and all that. I played poker for like a couple of hours, I think, for a laugh, because I wanted to learn the rules of Texas Hold'em.
Well, I don't know. A good card game in some cases is actually a pretty good benefit to a game, although poker is obviously just poker.
It's
It's like
got
the card
blackjack
games
as
in
well.
FF8 and 9.
Those were not good.
I don't know, the one in 8 was
They
alright.
were sort of interesting to fuck around with, and then you had to try and work out the rules because they basically didn't tell you. It's like, here's a card, it has some numbers on it, and then these little arrow things, and then somehow these numbers determine shit.
Oh look, it's a fight. I've lost. I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah,
Even KOTOR had that like weird Pazak game thing.
but that's in the Star Wars sort of mythology.
Is it?
I mean, not
think-
necessarily explained very well in the mythology, obviously,
Yeah,
before they put it into an actual game.
yeah. Anyway, so
Going back
That
to
was-
films, did anybody hear this week that a film studio snapped up the rights to Mass Effect?
oh yeah, I heard that the producers are the people who made the game, so that's good. Like
I can't
people
be mad,
from
actually.
people
Yeah,
from
yeah.
BioWare, yeah. So,
But my question is, do you reckon they'll actually try and follow the game plot?
I don't know.
Or go off on a tangent in the same universe? Because let's be honest, that universe is well formed enough to cater for a number of stories.
Yeah, I think that's.
It doesn't have to all be about Shepard and Reaper, but just one. It doesn't have to be. But I don't know. It's one of those things where they could pull it off. I reckon if they do it not too serious. Well, I don't know. It's one of those things. They either go all out on the serious or do it Fifth Element style.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I can see that quite working.
I think it could be good. I don't know.
But would they play Paragon Shepherd or Punch Out Shepherd? Or
Well,
maybe that'll be
yeah.
a special feature on the DVD or something. Where it's how the scene would
There's
have
two
gone.
films.
Yeah.
Oh god.
So presumably, logically, if you're going to do that, he'll be, he'll it will just be one of the classic cliches where he's like, he's a drunk or whatever, but then he eventually redeems himself, or it's like he does what needs to be done to get shit done. Yeah, done by punching people, basically.
Yeah.
It will fit into one of those cliches, probably. Rather than the weirdness of the computer game where it's like, I'm a nice guy 1 second, and then I'm right bastard next second, just because you press a different button.
I'll see what I can do. Can I ask you a few questions? I found that funny in Mass Effect, in Mass Effect 2, where you catch up with that reporter that smeared your name in the first game, and basically the renegade actioner is lay her out.
Well, yeah, but you could
Oh,
already
yeah,
punch
yeah.
her in the first game.
Yeah. It seemed to. I'm pretty sure I punched her in the first game as well, but she didn't seem to remember that.
That was a good punch.
Yeah. Can't even
And there
remember.
doesn't seem to be any consequences to it this time either. It's like, in the first game, there are reports in the conversations or something that you've handled that quite badly, or
But they're not really consequences.
Well, no, I
Like, here's
suppose
some,
not.
here's some speech.
but I mean, there's a follow up or something from the colonel or whoever that dude was that came over the radio.
Yeah,
and
miscellaneous guy.
yeah, but in this game, it's just like, yep, nothing happened. It's cool.
But then again, in Mass Effect 2, you do, like, randomly punch and kill a lot more people if you're doing the renegade stuff. In Mass Effect 1, that was pretty much the only case where it was like, you could do something actually bad to someone by choosing the renegade option rather than just being sort of a hard ass and saying no or whatever. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, it's just like, kick people out of windows, shoot them in the face.
Oh, it's so cool. I love that kicking the person out the window thing. That was so
I haven't
good.
done that yet.
No, I think I I missed it, but then I saw it on YouTube. I obviously did the Paragon thing or something, but next time I would definitely do the Renegade.
I'm making a point of playing like a bastard the first time through this time.
Oh, okay. Because the thing
Mainly
is,
because I brought my character called Gangster from the first game.
Gangster Shepherd.
Yeah.
you're kind of less of a bastard and more of just a badass, aren't you? Though that's the great thing, isn't it, about Mass Effect 2? Is that you're
That's how they describe it as well. That's how the
Yeah.
game actually describes it. It's like, be the badass.
Yeah, you're not really doing evil things. You're just doing
Apart from
cool,
randomly killing
awesome
people.
things. Well,
I always
don't
think
know.
that sometimes if I play too much of the evil, though, that you won't get certain things. Like if you play asshole to some of your crew, sometimes it might not unlock like the romance stories or things like that. Or
Yeah, I guess. Everything is sort of more balanced towards friendliness. Even when
Red Dead
they
has like
intend
2
not
different
to.
meters on it. So it's got the kind of honor, which is the good bad meter, right? Which you get points for doing good things and negative points for doing bad things. But it's also got a fame meter, which just goes up regardless of whether it's good or bad the thing that you're doing. By the time that tops out, everyone knows your name and is talking about you, and you're like a legend of the West, just like the gunslingers that were really in the Wild West. Everyone
does it
talked
have any
about
other purpose other than just awesome?
leveling
yeah,
up.
yeah. Like fame, like does things like reduces the cost of things in shops, and the honor thing, like
Leveling up. It's just like,
well, no,
this
it's
is
not
your XP.
leveling. No, it's not XP because it doesn't have any it doesn't change your health or anything like that. Oh, that's the thing as well. Like GTA 4, one of the lamest things about GTA 4, in my opinion, was that it has an old style health system where you lose it and you have to pick up health packs, and every time you do a mission, you have to go and pick up a new armor pack from the place where it spawns. Kind of
Although
breaks.
that's sort of realistic.
I don't know. That part maybe, but I thought that was kind of bringing it back
Stop
down.
picking
to the
your
level
fucking teeth!
There's still a bit in there.
I thought that was like bringing it back down to the level of a computer game when everything else was really immersive. But Red Dead has just got the standard health system of the bloody screen, the recharging shield thing. So that's
Actually,
good.
going back to Mass Effect, that sort of your dying effect looks really veiny and weird.
Yeah,
it's-
I know what you mean. Yeah,
It's a
I
bit
know
strange,
exactly what you
isn't it?
mean.
And it's hard to tell the difference between slightly hurt and really fucking hurt
Yeah.
because it just looks just as tentacly.
Yeah, it's not that great, I have to admit. Like, I don't know what the best of those sort of screens is, because I always thought the Gears one with the sort of logo was a bit weird.
It's
You know what I mean?
nice.
Having a big
yeah,
symbol come up.
Well, none of them are great because none of them really give you a scale of just a brilliant sense of just how close you are to death. I mean, the Call of Duty one's not bad in that respect.
Yeah.
Probably one of the earlier Call of Duty ones are probably the better ones for that, actually.
What,
Where it's
Call of
sort
Duty
of-
2 or something?
Yeah,
That was like the first one that ever did it.
It seems to thump a bit more. I don't know, sort of like pulsate through your heartbeat more.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I mean, ODSTs isn't that great because you just go red when your shield's down, and so
Right.
then you can't. It doesn't get more red as you're dying, apart from the meter. But I don't know. It's not quite so in your face that you're dying
Okay.
because it happens so bloody often. The screen's red half the time.
Yeah,
So
because it's so hard. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, actually. Yeah, the Gears of War one's a bit strange because it's sort of, although relatively useful in a strange way,
Yeah.
because it sort of
You
acts
end up
like the
using it to
crosshair.
aim. Yeah, you
Yeah.
end up using the symbol to aim, which makes no sense, but I mean, it is useful, but I still think it's an interesting and weird choice. I don't know. Oh, man. Another thing about
red
the
omen.
combat in Red Dead is I mean, I say the combat is much improved over GTA 4, but they haven't really improved the cover mechanic. I mean, that's one of the worst cover mechanics, I think. Well, we're saying Mass Effect was kind of
Yeah,
a
it
medium
was
one.
was okay,
Yeah.
but it's a bit twitchy.
This is a bit of a low one. Not that it really matters, because you don't need it that much, but I mean, it is slightly improved on GTA 4, but the thing about GTA 4 one was it was kind of impressive, even if it was a bit bad, because you could clamp onto things that were moving 10 seconds ago, like cars and stuff, which was, I thought that was really cool. Whereas in Red Dead, there's no cars or anything.
Take cover behind a horse.
Yeah. So all the stuff you're attaching to is kind of static,
Corpse protection.
low walls and rocks and things. And it's not that great.
Big meat shield.
But that's a bit of a niggle there. That could have been better. But, yeah.
Can you can you do the classic hang off the side of your horse to protect yourself from bullets? Because obviously the horses are going to get injured.
Well,
where you're riding along and then you...
That happens in the Prince of Persia film when he's under attack from arrows. He hangs off the side of the horse. The horse is fine.
Yeah, your horse can get killed, but they don't seem to target it that much, which is useful because your horse doesn't seem to take that much punishment, really. I mean, but it doesn't die that often. But what you can do is there are basically...
What happens when it dies? Because it's supposed to be your horse. Does that mean you then have to get another your horse?
Yeah, you have to get another your horse. So how it works is, okay, whatever horse you're on, if you hitch it up to a hitching post in a town or something, then it becomes your horse, okay? So that's the way you save a horse, okay? And from that point, you can whistle by pushing up on the D-pad anywhere in the world, and the horse will appear and wander over to you, right? But if it gets killed, then you'll need to find another horse and then attach that to the hitching post, right? And there's a bunch of different kinds of horses in the game, and they're all recognizable by their coats, like different colors. And there are basically 3 awesome horses in the game. And one of them you get quite early on, assigned to you after doing a mission, like the stallion or whatever. And they're slightly faster, or they have different stats. But basically, so you get really attached to that horse or whatever, and then when it dies, you get really annoyed. But once you've broken one of that kind of horse, then you can go to the general store and you can buy a deed for the horse. And once you've got the deed, then anytime it dies, you can activate that deed in your menu and you'll get a new one, basically. So, like, you pay for the deed once and then you get infinite number of that horse every time you lose it, basically.
Horse spawner.
You could just... Yeah, it's a horse spawner, basically, which is really useful. I mean, they don't end up dying that often, which is really nice, because then you get I think, apparently, like, the stamina of the horse, which is the little gauge that you could imagine just like...
Carrots.
Just like carrots gauge, right? That gets... The more time you spend with one horse, like one individual horse, then that gets larger, that gauge or whatever. So that's good. So, but... Yeah, so you end up buying these deeds, and then you can just summon these. And you have to go out finding them. After that first one, the other 2 are really hard to find, because the best ones are really rare. So you end up going out trying to find the damn thing. And the last one, I spent ages trying to find the damn thing. I'm getting killed by tons of bears, like up in the mountains. And eventually I found one out on the plains, and I lassoed it. And I managed to... You'd have to do a little balance minigame, a bit like Tony Hawk balancing on a board, in order to break the horse, because it bucks. You have to stay on it for a while. And once you lasso the horse, you get on it, you do this mini game, and then you've got the horse, right? But then the moment that I got the horse, a cougar comes out of nowhere and kills it. And I was like, you fucking bastard! Freaking kill that cougar. And then I went into town and bought the deed, because at that point I'd tamed the horse and I could buy the deed. And they just summoned one. But I was like, I'd been trying to find this horse for ages. And this cougar just comes out of nowhere. It's really weird. Like, those ambient stuff sometimes interact together. Like, a guy's like, oh, someone's stolen my horse. So you go off and you get the horse. By the time you come back, a whole bunch of wolves has killed the person. like, the wildlife do weird interactive stuff. Like, they're always attacking people, and you can help people out by shooting them. And like, packs of wolves are the initial kind of guys that actually attack animals that actually attack you. But then you've got cougars, which are really dangerous because they're really quiet and really fast, and they come out of nowhere. They're quite rare, but when they do attack, they're pretty bad, and they come in packs. And then the bears later on are really nasty as well. Yeah, wildlife in general is good, because there's these ambient challenges in addition to the rest of the game that you can do at any time. There's hunter, sharpshooter, survivalist, and treasure hunter. Treasure hunter is like you have to use these treasure maps to find buried Aztec gold, you know. And then the hunting is like you have to go hunting for all the different wildlife, like, you know, deer and elk and
then make a bear burger.
Yeah, well, you can when you kill the bear, you then, or any animal, you then skin them and you get the meat, and you can use that to sell it. So, but yeah, so you can make bear burgers. They should put that in the game. But,
Grizzly burger.
Was there some guy in the game who's called Bear or Grizzly or something, and he's a huge dude?
Or is there a restaurant called Bear Grylls?
Bear Grylls. No, there are. I mean, you save in saloons a lot when you don't have like a house. Then you sort of save in a room in a saloon, but they don't seem to have a cook or just a bar. You can get a drink there.
Is that still relatively annoying to do? Because I always found that a bit annoying in GTA. You know, to save, you had to drive all the way to your house. You had to then walk all the way up the fucking stairs.
Yeah,
and then make your way to the bed and try not to turn the telly on.
Yeah,
and,
that is exactly the same. Although there are a lot of auto saves, and there are checkpoints all through the mission, so you don't have to worry about that.
So can you turn off the console though? Is what I'm saying, and give up the game.
If you finish a mission and it auto-saves, you can then turn off the console. But the only way you can save into a slot thing, so that someone else can have a go, is to go to one of the, to go up the stairs and into the room and try and get next to the bed and press the Y button. All that stuff is the same. And it advances time 6 hours just the same, so you have to get through the day-night cycle, because some missions you can only activate during the day, so sometimes you have to go to sleep for a while, That's still the same. But one of the things...
I can't expect the world from it, I suppose.
No, you can't expect everything to be. I don't know. It's an interesting conceit.
You need to be in specific places at specific times. Don't you need to have every showdown at noon?
You can wait till noon for showdowns, I guess. I mean...
It's like, what if it was like 6:03 and you were like, oh fuck, I have to actually stay awake for 6 hours instead of just sleeping so I can do my showdown at noon?
Yeah, that would be annoying. Because when you press pause, you have a clock in the top right-hand corner, which is sometimes useful. It's like an old-timey clock as well, which is quite nice. It's like a stopwatch.
I just had an idea, like if you had one of these duel tournaments that used to exist or something, but you had a lot of time to kill before your next duel. Maybe there could be like some sort of steady drinking game you could play, like a little mini game. So you're still drinking, just keeping yourself occupied, but then you're sober enough to do the duel properly. Like, fuck it up, and the time moves faster, but then you're still pissed when you do the duel.
Pissed dueling, that'd be amazing. Oh.
Or you could, like time passing minute. Maybe that's where the poker would come in. So you could play poker for a bit to pass time. But if you lose, then you're angry, or you get into a bar fight or something, and then you're not quite at your best for the duel.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
It was always funny in Fallout 3 how you could just pass time. Because you could, if you slept, you could choose how long for it. Like, go sleep for 1 hour, or go sleep for 24 hours. But then you could also just do it anywhere, but only it didn't count as sleeping, it was just wait. So it's I'm going to stand here for 24 hours.
And you press wait. That's another thing. You don't have to... actually, that's a point. I've forgotten about this, but I was saying you have to go up the stairs and go into the thing. Actually, you can save anywhere in the wilderness by building a campsite. So it doesn't matter if you're miles from town, you can still save. I'd forgotten about that. And you can use the campsites to warp travel, so you don't have to ride across the world if you don't want to.
So you can create your own spawn points anywhere?
Yeah, anywhere in the wilderness. Provided you're not in a town, it can detect that kind of thing. If you're out in a field or something, you can create your own save point and moving point. Well,
How
no,
long
you
does
can't.
that take do though?
Oh, it's really quick. Yeah, you just go into your inventory and select campsite.
It's like tent.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little fire that you make. In the
RPG throwback there.
Yeah.
It's quite nice, and
you get like a little bit of music when you fall asleep.
I don't
or
think
something.
there is a bit of
And
music.
Moogle.
It just goes to the loading. Oh, and of course, Grand Theft Auto style. That there's no. You can go across this vast world, and there's no loading pauses. Okay, there are loading pauses
cool.
like when you warp, but they're really short. And I played the game with it installed on my 360 hard disk, and all the loading pauses were really quick. And as I say, it streams off, so you can just you can go from Mexico to the mountains in in the US, and it'll never do a loading pause, which is cool.
Obviously, the most important question is, what happens at the edge of the map?
Do you get fired out of a man cannon off your horse?
Well, that's a good point, actually. I never really felt the need to. I mean, I guess there are kind of mountains at the edges, but I never really felt like I was hemmed in that badly.
But it's like the classic thing where it's like that kind of edge of map thing where it's like if you say it's like mountains or whatever, is it really obvious that it's like, look at these 4 incredibly precise lines of mountains that enclose this square area conveniently?
Look at this pocket of radiation.
Yeah.
That
made
point.
sense in Fallout 3.
I mean, I don't. they convinced me. I don't know how they managed to convince me of the edges of the map, but however they did it, it never bothered me. It never seemed weird. So, like you're saying, I'm trying to think how they managed to pull that off, because actually it's a bit of a feat, isn't it?
How did they do that in GTA 4? Because not every side was water-facing, was it?
They just had like lines of buildings with no back alleys, I guess.
Yeah.
Every side was water-facing in GTA 4.
No. Okay, so it's a really shit island that's...
Yeah, it's a really shit
no
island.
bridges off to the mainland.
Even Alderney, which is mainland New Jersey, right? That had a shore on the
Was it really
western
obviously
shore.
straight?
Think about it. It's fairly straight. I've probably got the map here. I could probably bring it out. I know it's a bit big. GTA 4 map, but yeah. No. Well, I know it has a long motorway on that side, so that was kind of the excuse, because it represented the turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike.
And it had no sort of right turns. You could get off it on that side.
No, so yeah, everywhere is bounded by water. Whereas in this, it's not bounded by water at all. I mean, there's a river going down the middle of the map that separates Mexico from the US, just like the Rio Grande in real life. But yeah, that doesn't, because you can cross it obviously to get to the other side. So that's not a boundary in terms of the whole world. So yeah, I don't know how.
You just didn't notice where the edges were.
Not really, no.
I can't really remember exactly what happens in Fallout 3, because there is literal... I mean, there are some... I think Fallout 3 has sort of a range, because there's obviously sides where there's mountains, and there's radiation zones. But I'm fairly sure there's one bit of the map where you can just walk off down the street, and it just says, there's nothing else this way, turn around. Which is sort of a retarded way to do it.
That's awesome.
It's kind of a good excuse, that one.
There is nothing here.
It's all an illusion.
It's locked.
Well, of course,
one of those doors, isn't it?
Well, theoretically, in Fallout 3, it's got the same excuse as Eve of being a computer simulation. Because even though it's never mentioned anywhere, it's just it's one of those stupid throwaway back of the box things, where it's like the back of the box description of Fallout 3 is like, this is an accurate simulation of the wasteland as you're safe in your vault. It's like playing Fallout 3 is like playing Fallout 3 as if you were in a vault playing Fallout 3.
I think Red Dead has the best skies I've ever seen in a game, which kind of makes sense.
Do they not have the
Western.
rapidly moving plane?
No, they don't have that nonsense. Like the weather effects are really good. It does. I mean, it rains a lot more and stuff like that in GTA 4, which makes sense because it rains a lot more on the East Coast. Yeah, in the desert, but it does occasionally rain in but very seldom. But like
does it
the
snow
sun
in the desert.
There's snow. There's snow in the mountains. So. It does have enough range of geography. It actually the region actually represents because you know how San Andreas kind of represented all of California and a bit of Nevada. Well, you know, it had Los Angeles, which was Los Santos or something, and it had San Francisco, and it had
San Santos.
It had Las Vegas.
Los Santos.
Well, I was trying to work out what the area represented in Red Dead Redemption, and it's huge, I think. I mean, it's like the whole West. Like, because those mountains with those grizzly bears, they could only be, like, up in north of sort of Colorado. So it goes all the way from up there, all in the Rockies, all the way down to Arizona, and then down further into Mexico. And that's
Is it all connected then, or does it separate?
Well, there are three
so when you're doing
areas.
the Mexico section, can you not, like, just ride back up to the Rockies?
Oh, you can totally ride up to it, yeah. I mean, you only get access to that last area, the Rockies, after you've done Mexico, effectively. But at any point in Mexico, you can ride back to
what have
Arizona.
they done to replace the radio, is what I'm asking. So when you're, like, riding around, because that was one of the key features, isn't it, on GTA, was the music. So when you're riding around, you just randomly get the Lone Ranger playing.
That is a very good point.
Do you get like a Mexican on a donkey who follows you and plays guitar on the side?
that is an interesting... Because you're right, that is a very important element of GTA. And so, no, there's none of that. Obviously, there's no radio. So
I'd laugh if you could patch it so you could put the Vice City radio on a horse. That would be cool. So every horse going past just sounds like...
Here on
That'd
my
be awesome.
horse, I feel safe as devil.
Or a whole load of parody songs.
Well, so that puts a lot of weight on the soundtrack, obviously, because it can never be as good as all these, licensed musics, can it? And the ability to choose. So, but the soundtrack, I think the score for Red Dead is pretty good. It's not as good. Obviously, it's no Ennio Morricone. It's no It's nothing quite as good as that.
They could just change it around so it's.
That's the hardest thing to do.
Well, no, instead of it could be
it reverses it more so it works.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
The problem is
You
that
went in the same direction there again, though.
the problem is that the third time it does that in that soundtrack anyway, because it goes wah 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 wah, and then it goes wah 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 wah. So it does that anyway.
Maybe you'd have to add a third note, like arpeggio.
Arpeggio.
Yeah. No, it has a good soundtrack, and it does that
add
thing where
lyrics to it in a gangster rap. Gringo.
gringo. Gringo. Yeah, that'd be amazing. No, it has so when you go into Mexico, it has sort of Mexican trumpets and stuff, and then in America, it has more sort of whistling and the soundtrack is pretty good. And there's a couple of songs in there, like proper songs. Like the first time you go into Mexico, it plays a song like with singing and everything. And it's like a great moment in a film,
Woke up this morning.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Had myself a taco.
And you only hear that song, obviously, that one time in that playthrough. So it's a really powerful moment when that song comes.
Well, it's kind of like I keep saying fucking Mass Effect. That's pretty much what I've been playing this week. But
that's
it's
fine.
like
well, I've been talking about Red Dead, so
for over an hour. And
sorry,
it's like the end theme to Mass Effect. I always thought was pretty cool, and it's sort of 80s synth vibe.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And you only hear it in the end sequence.
Yeah,
but it is like 7 minutes long or something ridiculous.
Oh, what was it? Banging hardcore tunes at the end of Perfect Dark or something, wasn't it? Or no, that was in the.
No. It was just a version of the Perfect Dark theme with guitars.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was really badly sampled on the old N64.
Ending themes are always weird for some reason. The worst one was like Advance Wars DS had a totally. It was like all the other music is like, their stupid theme tunes for all the different COs, but then the end music is really weird and sort of out of place, where it turns into a kind of a weird synth biffy boffy thing. No, it's not. Actually, the credit music for Borderlands is fairly weird. You still haven't got to see it.
No, we still haven't finished Borderlands. We must do that.
No, we won't for a while.
Well, no, that's true. Because now we're fucked.
Yeah, but when you get back up, you'll be able to run it looking nice. Which would be nice.
Yes, looking more like how it looks on Roll's computer.
I don't think really you can cough like that for gloating, can you?
You're trying to...
It's like, everyone stop and think, what is the gloat sound effect?
Or is it just, yeah, boy?
That's not gloating.
Well, if you're talking about me, and then I agree with that, talking about me, that could be considered gloating.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, Rob, you're super sweet. Yeah, boy?
Apart from then you kind of reduce your super sweetness by sounding retarded.
No denying.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Sick, man, sick.
I kind of can't think what the gloat sound effect is. I keep wanting...
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a sort of satisfied sigh would be the right vicinity. I keep thinking...
I don't know what the fuck that was. That didn't come out quite right.
I keep thinking of like the sort of cliched French sound effect. It's like for some reason that speaks to me of gloating.
Just because the French in general like to gloat about how awesome
Yeah,
their food
no, Cat, no,
superior
don't.
they are.
Cat was pulling on my headphone wire there. It's like, no, don't pull it out. I won't be able to hear anything.
That would be bad. So yeah, I recommend you at least give it a try. I will,
I'm trying to think of other crazy end music. Oh, the Penny Arcade Episode 1 music, where it's like you've gone through an entire game of like sort of like orchestral themes and a bit of carnival music and a barbershop quartet which you murder, and then at the end you get this rap.
They had the rap at the end of Call of Duty, didn't they?
Oh no, Gears of War. The Gears of War rap.
That was bloody terrible.
That was amazing though.
Oh, I remember that shit. Yeah.
That
was awful.
was brilliant. And they didn't do it in Gears of War 2, or they didn't have a hilarious equivalent, so I'm playing for the ending, and it's just... don't get me wrong, the score in Gears of War is pretty cool, but it was just more of the normal score, rather than a Coltrane rap.
You're hoping for more Coltrane?
This is my kind of shit.
Yeah.
Was that ending?
That wasn't a rap, that was sound effects.
Yeah, basically. Made into a rap.
Was there any good? Was there a good ending song to like Jet Set Radio? Or I don't know. I'm trying to think of games with really good music.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure Jet Set had its own ending theme, did it? Because the rest of the score, I think it had one of those classic
mixes.
Yeah, what are they called?
Medleys.
Medleys. Yeah, that's it.
Oh right, okay.
Because they do that in the Sonic games, don't they? They always have a medley rush.
Medley rush.
Yeah, that's what they're called. Like it's like
unfortunately,
it's like the special boss modes they have in Japanese games are always called boss rush.
Oh, what was
those in Sonic as well?
What was the song for that? We were talking about this just recently, but the original Command and Conquer ending with that trailer for Tiberian Sun or whatever it was going to be with the mech suit that had like cool music, didn't it? I can't remember. It was in the game.
Wasn't it just I'm a Mechanical Man?
Yeah, it was I'm a Mechanical. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was.
I'm a Mechanical Man.
Beow. That was great. Can't really think of many good ending music. What playing over the credits?
Sega and Sonic All-Star Racing has a slightly upbeat and not that bad ending theme. Actually, no,
already.
Well, when you've played through all the tracks, it's like Mario Kart when you play. We haven't brought this up yet. Yeah, I've been playing Sega and Sonic All Stars Racing. We'll do this next week. So we're nearly out of time.
Okay.
It's got a fairly decent. Well, I say decent. It's got a well-produced cheesy dance end theme, which is original to the game. And Sonic Unleashed actually had a pretty good theme as well, which was sung by the lead singer from Bowling for Soup.
Okay.
Best combo ever.
Yeah, that was actually quite a good song, if a little cheesy again, but...
I really want to talk about that because I've heard sort of vaguely good things about that song, All-Star Racing game. So, in fact, that next time. Well, I don't know.
Still to come.
Still to come on the Saladcast. How are we?
I'll play it a bit more at the minute because I'm still working my way through beginner mode. And,
Is it hard?
No, quite the opposite. But it's like Mario Kart in the sense... Well, no, we'll talk about this next week. Well, I'm not going to get dragged into this.
I refuse. Fuck. Screw you guys.
Let's continue talking about game music because I've always thought it's quite a cool subject because it's I've always had quite a even since the days of back in Screamer 2 on PC and stuff. I've always quite appreciated game music, and actually back in those days I preferred that to pop music.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Late 90s pop.
Yeah, man, that was a bad time. Top of the Pops in its.
And then wake up the Top of the Pops.
Who was that impression of?
Just some generic DJ where it's like, hey, we're going to Top of the Pips.
Oh, God.
Pips. 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 I mean Mark Goodyear or something like that, I don't know.
Have you seen, because this is a bit off topic, but you guys we were talking about Super Mario Galaxy 2 and how you weren't looking forward to it at all, Zach.
Yeah.
That's
sort of changed.
Yeah, have you seen the freaking reviews?
Though. Yeah, no, they're loving it.
Literally everybody.
The trouble is
it.
that it's like that automatically makes you suspicious because it's like everyone likes it too much. Like it can't be this good.
The Metacritic score for Super Mario Galaxy 2 is currently 98 after 40 reviews. Okay.
Well, after the first game was considered awesome though, wasn't it? And
true.
And it clearly wasn't.
Not like this.
Basically,
Not
this
awesome
one is like the first game but they've made it that little bit better. So it's
Okay.
hard to see that it would get a worse score. Well, this is the
Well-
annoying thing about reviews, isn't it? Because you can see why it would get a worse score, because it obviously loses points for originality, because
Exactly.
it's just
Yeah.
a straight another game. But
More of the same, yeah.
yeah, in a different way, if you considered it on its own, in the fact that it's maybe, if they dropped the 2 and it just happens to be the first game that they made like this, then it would still obviously be awesome. It just reeks of a cheap shot.
Yeah.
In a way,
And
yeah.
it's like you're going to be doing the same things again. They can't possibly have invented more, that much more.
While I have no doubt it's still top shelf platforming, and I use top shelf in the sense that it's the best, not that
Not
it's
pornographic.
not that it's pornographic platforming. No.
I know what you mean.
It's there's no doubt it's high grade platforming goodness, but at the same time, it's just everyone else almost gets a jab at for sort of just doing the same thing again. But a bit of me still can't understand how Ninty get away with it.
Because
I
everyone
think you guys
bitched about the water backpack shit. It was like, that's something different, and now you're complaining about
At
it.
least they
I
experimented.
didn't think it was very good, though. I
don't know. I didn't mind it.
It was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't like Blood. But,
And they
it's
still had
personal taste.
they had the levels in Mario Sunshine where it's like, no, you don't have the backpack. Do some normal platform.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think Flood should have talked.
Well, no, obviously.
Yeah.
Or it should have had a less shitty voice.
Yeah.
Damn you, EGAD, program better voices in your robotic backpack things.
But I think you guys...
Just imagine if the vacuum cleaner in Luigi's Mansion had talked.
Yeah. Suck.
I'm going to suck some ghosts now.
I think you guys had better investigate this game if you can, though, because there's people out there literally sticking their neck out and saying, not literally sticking their neck out, but
I saw on
figuratively
there's
sticking their neck
adverts
out.
in the cinema for it and everything, and they're with a big thing saying pre-order now to avoid disappointment. All that shit. They're making a huge deal of it.
Well, there's
Happens to
serious
TV
gamers
advert.
out there who are saying this is the best Mario game I've ever played.
Oh,
which
actually,
is
saying
quite a
that, have you guys?
statement.
Speaking of adverts, have you seen the one for Blur?
No, I don't.
Awesome.
watch adverts.
As far as game advertising goes, because it takes the piss directly at Mario Kart, and
cool.
starts off with a load of cutesy characters sort of sitting there at the starting grid going, "Let's race, everybody," and sort of really cheesy voices or something, and then this guy just looks to the side and sees past this fence, this dark twilight world with cars getting blown the shit out of, and just stands there going, "This is awesome." And then a guy, this pink fluffy
Dragon
kiddie-looking thing, sort of just walks up and goes, "It's not all about winning. It's about making friends." Shut up! Punches him to the ground, and then it goes, "Blur, play with the big boys." That's just like, that's awesome.
It does sound cool. I kind of want to play that now quite badly.
Blur is one of those games I think I want, but having played the console version and knowing that it only runs at 30 frames per second, and then being in the knowledge that there's a PC version coming, I'm in a whole load of two minds about it, because my brother's probably going to get the Xbox version, which would give me someone to play with. But I want the PC version because I know it will run better. But at the same time, I'm not quite sure how the online will hold up on PC.
Once again, you'll just wait forever and then get it when it's cheap. Like,
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, probably. I'm still,
sense,
if Burnout Paradise came down enough on PC, I'd probably still buy it on PC. Just to see what all the fuss was about.
That's
I'm a bit of a
bit
sap for a deal at the moment.
Well, that is
so,
the trouble with Steam.
yeah.
Cheap shit.
There's a bit of a war going on though right now because you've got Blur and Split Second coming out at the same time in a kind
Yeah,
of
we should
similar
talk about
vein.
that next time, because I've played
Yeah.
the Split Second demo. And,
Okay, we'll talk about that.
although I might try it on I've tried it on PlayStation, but for graphical reasons alone, I might try it on Xbox just to see how much it holds up, just because of the way the consoles do certain effects. Like the
Apparently-
PlayStation version to me seemed really quite aliased, so I might try and run it on Xbox, see if I get a smoother image, that kind of shit.
Apparently, Red Dead is quite a lot better on Xbox. Eurogamer did one of their really good comparison pieces.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's
Well, I
obviously
thought
the
that
engine.
about GTA as well. I thought
Yeah.
that it just generally looked better on Xbox.
Yeah, it runs at full HD, well 720 on
Yeah.
Xbox, and it doesn't on PS3 for some reason.
Oh, really?
Anyway, yeah, apparently.
Oh, that's controversial.
Yeah,
Controversial.
I guess it's interesting.
Who
What
fuck
time
will
are we
run
on
out
the
of
clock?
time?
Yeah.
We've got 2 minutes.
I can see the
Okay.
top from here this time.
Are we doing 2 hour 15, right?
Yeah, that's the usual.
Can we aim in future for the 2 hour? Because I think that extra 15 maybe a bit.
I don't know, but then again,
Maybe if you had talked about Red Dead for an entire hour.
I felt like this week we needed it because the last
Yeah.
half an hour, 15 minutes of chat is usually when we go off on some seriously awesome tangents.
That's true. That's true.
Tangents.
Tangent.
Yeah, we need time to be random, but this week
Yeah.
we talked a lot about games again. We
Well,
thought
no,
we
it's good to
would
be on focus, but at the same time, we need to sort of go off topic more regularly. And this is us
Yeah.
critiquing our own podcast in our podcast.
again.
That's okay. That's okay. So I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to our comedy machinations and talking about crazy games. And the next time, maybe more random, but certainly some talk of Sonic and Sega and Sonic. What is it?
It's Sonic and Sega All Stars.
Sonic and Sega All Star Racing, Split Second, various racing games.
It's undeniably a shit title.
And we'll have an update on Zach's computer situation and possibly Eve and various more talk about
Updates.
other gaming stuff. And I'll try and play some more Bayonetta at long last.
Yeah, because you said that weeks ago. You were going.
I know. I've been caught up in these other games, so we'll get there. I'll get there. So yes, let's say goodbye. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on the Saladcast.
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 Is that going to say something?
No.
Is he not going to say?
I'm not
Saladcast?
participating in your retarded barbershop not quartet, as we discussed earlier.
Saladcast.
Oh, by the way, it's a trio. We idiots. I can't believe we were like quartet, duet. What's a three? Is it like is it a tritet?
Anyway, gotta go.